Hello there, and welcome to the very first live stream of TinkerDifferent for 2023. My name is Bruce from Brankus Creations, and I am joined here by other members of the TinkerDifferent board. We will, first of all, I will welcome everyone for watching this, and welcome everyone for joining us on the stream. We don't have everyone, but we have most of us. So put it this way, we could probably do some voting. I think we have a quorum here. So anyhow, I'm going to introduce everyone. I think I probably should start off with the boss. So Kai.
Sorry, I still can't get my head around it.
Kai, the new boss man. So Kai, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello there. So for those of you that don't know, my name's Kai. I'm one of the founder members of TinkerDifferent, and if you've seen me around in sort of vintage and retro circles the last couple of years, then it's probably because I'm known for the creator of the Macintosh SE Reloaded board and the Macintosh Classic Reloaded board. The Classic Reloaded, which was of course featured in Bruce's excellent 4-part video series. Also come up with a couple of like smaller projects such as PAL Sims for the Macintosh 2X, along with Phil Cranmer, and just a couple of other little bits and pieces, ADB adapters, that sort of thing. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And so I think from this point on, we'll then just going to move around in that sort of fashion. So Ron, tell us about yourself.
I'm so disappointed. I thought you were going to say anti-clockwise. Why do I hang out with non-Americans to not hear all the cool words? But anyway, I'm Ron from Ron's Computer Videos and potentially other things. You can get more information about me at ronscompvids.com. And
your role on the board?
I take out people's trash. I make sure that there's coffee in the morning. If people are like causing a stink on the forums, you reach out, you kind of like, hey, take a knee, son. Let's talk about this. Those type of things.
I've got to say, Ron, I'm missing Biscoff in my morning latte. So,
sorry. We call them cookies, and we clear them out every time we close the browser. So.
If you're getting a gentle tap on the shoulder from Ron on the TinkerDifferent forum or the Discord, you've probably done something wrong. So look out for him.
Don't you mean he's done something wrong?
But don't worry, it's a thundering velvet hand.
Yes, that's right. Justin, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hello, I am Justin D. Morgan. I run a small little YouTube channel, aptly named Justin D. Morgan. I actually snuck the YouTube link in the... YouTubers can't point. It's a given. You sign up for YouTube, you start with a channel, and then you're like pointing every which way on screen. And it probably never gets better. Anyways, yes, I run a little small YouTube channel where I explore computers that my generation would have grown up with, hopefully to inspire the next generation. I also am the director of policies and guidelines on TinkerDifferent. So I would be the person that will probably be wordsmithing the policies and guidelines should we think they need an edit.
Which, of course, they just did recently.
They just did recently, and might also be kind of a continuing thing to refine them.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah,
indeed.
It's just a continuing refinement.
Yes,
hey,
right.
we run a forum, we learn, we refine.
We do.
And,
we do indeed.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
I mean, our original ethos was, be excellent to each other, but you kind of have to quantify stuff over time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we were in the very early days. We did get hung up on the word rules. I know there was a lot of we were like, we don't like the word rules, but at the same time, there isn't really another word that means the same thing, So, but anyhow, I think we've managed to find a nice balance.
I am glad that we did finally create a policy on rules.
Yeah,
That was the toughest thing. What that linguistic battle nearly ended the site before it began.
You don't know how right that is. But anyhow,
Yeah.
Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Eric. My role here is the Director of Information Technology. So me and Frogwraith or Christian keep the servers running and updated, patched, and all that fun stuff. Make sure the backups are happening and everything like that. So also
So hang on, wait a minute. We have backups? What?
Yeah, a few.
Yeah.
Not just
and then
one.
tested as well.
Yeah, I actually last week just logged in to just poke around, make sure everything was there. So do that
Wonderful.
quite often. So make sure everything's going. And yeah, I'm also a founding member and was reelected this year. And my side project is Blue Scuzzy, which you've likely heard of.
Yep, indeed.
Don't ring a bell.
I'll tell you about it later.
And Jacob, also known as Androda, tell us about yourself. What happened to your face?
What happened to my face? Well, my face is ugly. That's why it's not being shown here. To protect the innocent.
Well, that's kind of you, but yeah, I mean, my mug.
It's like you're in witness protection.
It's called being paranoid. Anyway, I am the secretary for TinkerDifferent, so I take notes on stuff. And when people don't do things, I badger them. Badger, with some mushrooms, preferably.
You should see some of the notes with the mushrooms.
And do you have any side hustles, Jacob?
Yes, indeed. My little bubble here talks about my side business, Tech by Androda LLC, which is an incredibly original and interesting name, which I thought up in about 3 seconds. Entertainingly, when abbreviated, it is TBA. So that pretty much describes all of my projects because I never know when they're going to be done. I
never thought about it like that. I was like, that's quite clever. Yeah.
And it came out of nowhere, unplanned, which is a happy coincidence. I work with Eric a lot on Blue Scuzzy things. We both ran into the Ards Casino project pretty close to the same time and went completely different directions with it, as is natural when these things happen. But we collaborate, we work together. It's been fun.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I think there's me. Sorry, I haven't done me. Bruce, Brankers Creations, Recap and Mac website, Brankers Creations YouTube site. That's about all there is to it. I don't do anything clever like these guys because, I'm not that clever. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. So anyhow, the whole purpose of this live stream was basically to get everyone, that everyone can, I guess, put a face or an avatar to some of the people that are on the forums, see who the new board is. We are missing a couple of people. We're missing, was it Drake and Christian Fogwraith? But they're here in spirit.
I think for Christian, mostly because it's gone midnight where he is. He may desire sleep.
We do struggle a little bit with time zones when we're doing all this stuff because it is many and varied. I mean, it is 10 o'clock on Sunday morning here. And it's 11 or midnight where you are, Kai, something like
10,
that.
10 past 11 at night.
10 past, yeah. So and then everything in between. But anyhow, we just wanted to make sure everyone knew who we were. We have a democratic process that happens every year, and every year everyone has the opportunity to put their hand up if they want to be a member of the board. Then we go through an election process, and that's how it is. One of the things we added this year, we didn't have on the board last year, was a secretary, which is wonderful because it's just so good having someone whose job it is to keep notes and to post minutes and stuff like that. So that has been absolutely fantastic, and we all love it.
I am taking notes on comments. So,
good.
If you have questions and things, I'm writing those down. We are not ignoring them, or we are not attempting to. Sorry if we miss you.
Yes.
We're
look,
trying to keep up on it.
We will try and be as active with the chat as we can, but obviously it will be a little bit tricky, but we'll do what we can. But of course, if you do have any questions for us, we will be answering them at the end of the stream. So feel free to put them in there. They'll be copied down, and then we will, we will sort of answer those at the end. Just sensible questions, if at all possible. So.
Just one thing I would also like to add is that if you are if you're dealing with the chat at all, the best place to do the chat is actually in a little pop-out window on the TinkerDifferent YouTube channel, because although we get to see some of them, not all of them end up coming through, and we can't necessarily reply to people who are chatting in a different channel that this is being rebroadcasted to.
Yes, that's right. So I am broadcasting this on my Breakfast Creations channel as well. And anyone who is watching it on that, if you want to be part of the chat, I would highly recommend going to the TinkerDifferent channel, subscribe while you're there. It'll make you feel better. And watch the video there and be part of the chat there, because that is the chat that pretty much all of us are looking at. So, all right. Well, one of the main, unless anyone else has anything to add, I think we'll move on to the main purpose of this video, and that was that we want to do a little tour of the TinkerDifferent forum and some of the absolutely amazing projects that are being submitted on there by people, because it's very easy, I think, to sometimes get onto the site and get a little bit overwhelmed. We've got over 1,000 members now. It's very active, and there are just some brilliant things. As I keep saying to people, it is a fantastic time to be into vintage computers, other than the ridiculously climbing sale prices of some of these vintage Macs. Like if you're wanting to buy a 2FX or a Quadra 950 at the moment, forget about it. But if you're wanting to, enhance these computers, I mean, I just made my Macintosh SE30 grayscale the other day, 256 shades of gray. And I don't know why something so simple I find so amazingly awesome. But anyhow, that's a story for another day. So what I am going to do here, I am going to bring up a screen. Oh goodness me! Sorry, I haven't done this in Chrome on this new computer yet, and so now it's asking me for permissions for doing things. So let's go here too. Right,
just
not
a regular
that one.
round of Google May I get it.
Yeah, that's right. So. Crew has lost permission to capture your screen. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Well, Google May I is almost no different than Apple May I and Firefox May I and Windows May I.
So it's essentially what it's telling me is I need to quit Chrome and relaunch it. So, which means that I am going to have to disappear very briefly. So, Ron,
yes.
Over to you.
Okay. So, in the beginning, there was just sand, and it was everywhere. And people were like, maybe we could turn this into something that we could play video games on. And they were like, let's do it. And then here we are.
We taught sand to think.
So Bruce will be back here shortly, but
yes, we are indeed live. This could only happen in a live stream. This would be edited out otherwise.
It's so weird that he's back from tomorrow to be on the stream.
Excellent Star Trek quote, Joe.
Ugly bags of mostly water.
Okay, so we're going to start off here. This is one recreating the Apple Tech Step. Now, for people who don't know what the Tech Step is, it was a device made by Apple for use by Apple only. And it was around at the time of, sort of the early beige computers. And it allowed you to plug it in to the computer. You would start it up and it would run some diagnostics and potentially tell you what was wrong with that computer. Now, they come up on eBay every now and again for absolutely outrageous prices, and then you have, I think, little ROM chips or something for them, that go into them for the computer you want to work on. So if you're checking an SE30, you get the little SE30 thing and you plug it in, and then you connect it up to the computer, you fire it up, and it'll run a whole series of hardware tests, and that will help you hopefully find the fault, like a battery has exploded on this logic board. And anyhow, because these things are so rare, because they were only an Apple device, there is this project going ahead to actually recreate it, which I think is just one of the most amazing things out there. Does anyone have anything they want to add to this?
Well, it was just to say that the person who originally started this project is actually one of our moderators, Max, who's also known for a couple of other projects, which we'll probably end up bringing up later on in this stream.
And this is what the interface of the tech step looks like, and this one has obviously one of those ROM card things in there, which has the option for Classic, the SE, the SE30, the 2X or 2CX. So this would be able to diagnose those. And here we go. Here's what the guts of it look like. So some of it
that's
anyway.
easy. That's easy. Just some bits and bobs. We got that.
Yeah, that's right. So anyhow, look, this is again, it's just one of these fantastic things where we get to see people doing awesomeness and contributing back to the community. So So unless anyone has anything else to add to that one, I will move on to the next one.
No, this is really amazing. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just kind of nice to see, something recreated that, right now it's kind of out of everyone's price range. And, I've seen a couple thought, oh, no one's bidding on this. And then at the end it goes to $700 or more. I was like, oh, wait. So it's cool that that's going to be reproduced.
Absolutely. Okay, what else have we got here? We have got, this is the Bourne 601 series RC Network T filters replacement. So anyone who's familiar with the really old Macs, like the old SE and that, they will be familiar with these little Bourne's filters up the top of the board, up the connector end of the board. And these have become very difficult to find modern replacements for. But at the end of the day, there's not a lot to them. They're not particularly complex in terms of what they do. And so someone has come up with this, absolutely fantastic idea of printing out a little PCB where you can drop a few little, a little surface mount resistors on there and recreate your own. Then you just use a few little headers to put through the holes, and then you can go in and replace these chips. This one is brilliant in its simplicity. I love this one. Anyone else want to comment on this one?
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, no, Eric, you go.
3 people all at once.
Everyone.
I have the control.
But I'm doing an SE reloaded board or SE30 reloaded board, and I was looking at these, and just like you said, you can't find them. So I'm glad that someone made. You're looking at the data sheet. I'm like, this is just some resistors. So it's kind of funny that why maybe Apple didn't just put some resistors on the board. I guess because it's on the top of the board. Maybe I don't even know. But
I think Alex, who makes these, he's in chat right now. So hi, Alex, and thank you again for your contribution here. I will say that in the UK at least, we are very lucky to have Silicon Arc, who sell new old stock original Bourne's filters for £1 each, but the same ones on Mouser now sell for like $6-7 each. And when you're dealing with like 4 on a board, that's a large expense for what is essentially a resistor. So if you make up even just a few PCBs of these for various projects, they will come in handy sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
While
plus,
you're
even
looking
in
at
the
these...
UK, plus even in the UK, if they're £1 each, just think of the shipping costs.
Yeah, exactly.
I got that.
Stop it, Ron.
While you're looking at the GitHub for these, please also check out Alex's other projects. He has a lot of really cool things.
Okay. Excellent.
Joe says, please ship me 100 now, please.
You can please order 100 now, please.
So what boards will we find these on? I think we see them on the SC. We see them on, I think, the SE30 as well. Would that be right?
SE30 as well. Basically, they're used as the... So on the SE, at least, these are what bridge the internal power plane gap. So it's just filtering and making sure signals are clean going from one side to the other.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
And actually, in fact, although these ones are dip header versions, you get surface mount versions on the classic and newer machines as well.
Yep. Cool. Okay. All right. So that's another great one. We will, at the end of this, put all of these links into the description. So if you're watching this after the fact, first of all, hello. Thanks for watching. And any of the things that we mentioned here, as I say, links will be in the description. But of course, you can just check them out on the old on the TinkerDifferent. On the TinkerDifference. Okay, so next one. This one. Whoopsie.
Come on over. Yeah. You can do it.
Now, how long is it going to take for Ron to do a pun on Egret?
Oh boy, is that chip full of regret.
I know.
Oh, and I beat Ron to it.
So anyone who is not
Egret
aware, Egret, which is also known often as the CUDA chip, that you'll find on a lot of the computers. They're quite distinctive, you can tell them, and they are an Apple thing. I don't think they're not something that is made by a broader manufacturer. I have managed to get hold of quite a few of them off UT Source, and I covet them. But anyhow, a lot of these Macs had one of these Egret chips or a CUDA, and this is a project to reverse engineer them. So someone with more brains than I have needs to explain how this is all going to work.
So I can answer a few things on this. I know MMU Man is around. He is on our Discord. I don't know if he's watching live now. So if he is, please do just chime in. But essentially, what Apple decided to do was around about the Macintosh 2 SI, they decided to change the implementation of things like ADB and the real-time clock from being separate chips, which are just bit banged, into an actual microcontroller. So what they did was they went on to Motorola and said, hey, we like your 68HC05 series of microcontrollers. We need it to do this. So Motorola said, right, well, you want one of those ones off the shelf over there. So it was an off-the-shelf part. And Apple, being Apple, decided to switch pin assignments around. But internally, it's still a 68HC05 microcontroller at the end of the day. I mean, you can get ones, you can still get them today, various, new versions, with more internal memory and, more SRAM, that sort of thing. So, very, very, very handy that, we've got the dumps of the code from inside the Egret. It's just a case of finding out which modern replacement microcontroller would be a suitable basis for replacing the Egret chip overall. Probably have to be on some sort of carrier PCB.
Mm-hmm. Yep, to swap the pins around or something.
To swap pins around as well, and make sure all the code as well is all going to work on a new modern up to date version.
One thing I will say for anyone who is working on a lot of these old computers, in particular if you're working with, I think, a Color Classic, it's very common for there to be problems associated with the Egret chip. But in most of my sort of working with these computers, it's usually related to damage traces and not the chip itself. I've only had to replace them a couple of times. So that's just a little tip for anyone who might be working with those. Do check all of the traces first before you sort of immediately start trying to hunt down an Egret chip. That's just there you go. There's a little tip for you.
Bruce, what's the most common one you've had to replace then?
Well, the most common, Egret chip or the most common component?
Most common.
Probably the chips on a Macintosh SE30, the little UX8 row, the UE8, UD8, the chips,
74 series logic.
Yeah, they need to be replaced a lot. And of course, the most common one is RAM chips on a 128K or a 512K Mac. That's hands down the most common chip that ends up having to be replaced, because those RAM chips just. So
this is great though, because Apple, in their infinite wisdom, put the Egret chip on the LCs right beside the capacitor-filled audio section of the board, and those are I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that might be the most common family of Macs that you have to replace the Egret on, just because of the number of capacitors right beside the Egret chip that just leak their electrolyte, flow to the Egret chip, turn it green, and then you have what happens to me on Dave's live stream. One of the legs falls off. And it happens to be the one that pulls the board at a reset.
Yeah. Well, that is the other thing. That's the other reason why you might need to replace one that it is actually corroded to the point that the legs are falling off.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that before. So, so that's another one. Watch this space because the hope is that we'll be in a situation where theoretically, if someone out there has a working Egret chip, we'll be able to dump the data on it. We'll be able to upload it to another chip, and with the use of a little carrier or something like that, we'll have replacements. So absolutely wonderful stuff. This is the next one. Recreating Macintosh portable hybrid module. Now, this has been done, I think, hasn't it? This is that you can actually buy replacement hybrid modules at the moment. So, who would like to talk about this one? I sort of feel like it should probably be Jacob.
Yeah, there's a high probability of that. I mean, so what got me started into this project was that my friend knows that I do hardware repair, and so he sent me his Mac Portable, which naturally was having problems. And I did a whole lot of research into the power manager chip. I did a whole lot of research on the schematics. And after a far longer time than it should have taken me, I managed to reverse engineer this thing with all of the original values, mostly correct. So it's within tolerance, basically. And yeah, you can pop the hybrid chip, the hybrid module out of your portable, put this in there, and it will work again almost all the time, unless there are other problems.
So I'm going to just quickly do this. So this is just off my website. Nice little plug there. So this is a photograph supplied by Steve from Mac84. Shout out to Steve. He supplied this photo for me because I have never had a non-backlight version come my way. I have only ever worked on the backlight version, I think. And this little blue thing down in the bottom left-hand corner is called the hybrid board. Now, you could be excused for thinking that it looks like a real piece of rubbishy jank stuck on there at the last minute, because it really does look like that. And if you want to know how much fun it is to remove, just speak to Steve from Mac84, because he can tell you what a fun job it is. This was gone in the next revision, so the backlight version of the Macintosh Portable no longer has this little janky piece in the corner, but it is a common point of failure, and certainly in the instance of a portable that Steve worked on recently, replacing this did actually bring it back to life.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, the backlit portable uses almost the same circuit, and naturally there's a nice big juicy capacitor next to one of the resistor packs with the high precision resistor values, so that'll still kill your machine.
Yeah, I've got a picture here of the other one because my website is so thorough. And so this is the backlit version here. As you can see, it looks quite different. A lot of the stuff on here is all very, very similar, but as you can see down the bottom left-hand corner here, we don't have that little janky thing there. But
Bruce. Now, for me, just a lay person, how would I find out where the ROM, RAM, or PDS slots are?
Well, Ron, you're going to need a schematic for that. That's definitely not something for the layperson.
Actually, it's interesting though that board down there is actually ceramic.
Yeah, it was, as far as I know, it was designed by Sony or some other big name like that. There are several op-amp analog comparator circuits on there. It's a bit of a mess. I've also started reverse engineering the system that's used on the backlit portable. It's better, but still needs the high precision resistor values because analog stuff is analog.
Right.
The Macintosh Portable is one of those Macs that is becoming increasingly hard to find and increasingly expensive. And of course, it goes without saying with these, they have got to be recapped if they haven't already. There are certain computers that have reached the age that if they haven't been recapped, they're just getting worse and worse and worse. So, portable is one that I don't have, and I do hope to have in my collection one day. But they are just selling for ridiculous prices out here. But if I do get one, it is nice to know that there are all these repair options out there. So, thank you for that one. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yes, that prototype of mine looks terrifying.
I love it. I love it.
Jacob, just based on the chat, that is the final revision, right?
That's the final revision. No. So if you want to, that is a prototype version, basically. I ended up having to tweak some components because of differences in run voltage. And further on in the thread, you can see my hybrid tester platform, which is this. Okay. I used the portable schematic to create a downstream board, as I called it, which I then have pogo pins on, and I test every single one of these for compliance before selling it. Because, I mean, if the hybrid's not working correctly, you get battery voltage on your 5-volt rail, and that's just not pretty.
Ooh.
Does it release the magic smoke?
I believe it may. So this is just me taking a guess. I believe failing hybrid modules may be the cause of the frequent swim chip explosions which happen on Mac portables. It just gets so much voltage that it can't handle it because it has drivers in there that work at above battery voltage anyway. So you amplify it even more and kapow.
Is there something someone can do to try and protect it, like switch something off or don't use something? Or
effectively, the only way to protect your machine from the hybrid module failing is not to use it. Because if you do turn it on and the hybrid module has failed, it can kill your portable in actually several ways.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Yeah, the AD line pin can kill your power manager chip, or it'll just send too much voltage to the main 5-volt rail and fry everything. Like it's a little nightmare on an ugly little blue board. It's terrible.
Well,
so what you're saying is it's a pinnacle of Apple engineering prowess.
Yeah, well,
yes,
at least the Macintosh
that.
Portable was light and powerful. At least it had that going for it.
Yeah, absolutely, totally portable. It gives laptop the correct meaning there.
I actually recently
that post that you just scrolled past is my hybrid tester platform. That picture there. Oh, wow. My janky hacked together IKEA tabletop hot glue clamp mechanism mess.
Hey, if it works, it works. You know,
it does. It works.
That's fantastic.
If it's stupid, but it works, it's not stupid.
Yeah.
I love that you've actually set up these little LED displays there. That's fantastic.
Yep, battery voltage. I forget what the other one is. That's probably AD and then main 5.2 line. I have other Mac portable projects on the way. Some of them crazier than others. So.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Do any of them just turn it into a PowerBook 100? Because that was Sony's solution. They were like, forget it.
Well, Sony's solution was a bit of a mess to begin with because they just basically miniaturized everything. And then the later 100 series PowerBooks use the same sort of power manager system. Now that the 100 schematics are released and the 140, I'm really curious to see what they changed it to because that might help produce a better revision of this hybrid replacement. It's expensive right now because I assemble them manually, I test them manually, and I want to drive the price down.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah. Amazing stuff. I'll tell you, I'm definitely very happy that these sorts of things exist. So, all right. So, unless anyone has anything else to add on this rather awesome project, I am going to move on to the next one. Okay. Now, this is an interesting one. This is one that's definitely very dear to my heart because I have lots of LCs. So breaking this 36 megabyte RAM limit on the LC3. Who wants to take this one?
I will. I have the conch on this one again. So obviously I hang out in the in the Discord in the hardware channel. So I've picked up a few bits and bobs about this. Essentially, the chipset behind the LC3 can actually address a lot more memory than Apple have actually allowed it to. And essentially what Max has done is he's figured out that you can actually like stick a ridiculous amount of memory in the machine and it can address it. You just need to connect additional address lines, to the socket essentially. Because Apple were like, well, we don't want this machine outselling other machines. We've got to restrict it somehow. And thus Max went down this rabbit hole, and now we have, because obviously he also did the LC3 Reloaded board, which kind of spurred it off in the first place. And now we have this sort of Frankenstein monster of an LC3 with unlimited RAM.
So it takes a little bit of soldering if someone wants to do this. I take it. But then you can get a little bit more RAM in the LC3, because again, with a lot of these old Macs, as we know from the way Apple used to work, they would often hamstring some of their computers so that they wouldn't be competing. So if you look at something like the Macintosh 2 SI, which came out at the same time the 2 CI was still selling and was a few $1,000s cheaper, one of the things that they did with the 2 SI was they actually released it with a slower clock speed than they were planning, so that people wouldn't end up buying that one instead of the 2 CI. So that was an interesting one. And again, it's these LCs, the low cost color computers, they in particular, if you're looking at the early ones, they had a 10 megabyte cap, I think, something
10
like that.
10 megabytes.
Yeah.
10 whole megabytes.
And even if you put more in there, it'll still only tell you you've got 10. So you can stick a couple of 16 megabyte modules. Yeah. Yep. So that was it. And I've had a lot of people. This is actually one of the things, having been involved with the Macintosh Classic Reloaded project that, Kai created. I've had people contact me about that and say, how do I put more than 4 megabytes of RAM into this Classic? And the thing is, it's just not possible. It's not made that way. And so you just have to kind of live with your 4. So no Photoshop on that one.
But I will tell you that the PowerBook 100, 16 megahertz, 68,000 can address like 10 megabytes of RAM. Or 8 or 10, one or the other. I can't remember, but that would be great. Like a black and white with those specs. Oh my gosh, that would fly.
Yeah.
Wasn't he looking at some flexible PCBs or something like that to try to fit all these RAM chips in there too? Because he was talking about a riser board on top. I forget it. It's been a while since
it was a relocation of the actual SIM, because a SIM that large wouldn't physically fit in the machine in the socket, or rather, it would fit in the socket, but you couldn't ever close it again.
So we have to cut little holes in the top, like you would on the bonnet of a car when you've got a blower.
Exactly, just where you can see the supercharger sticking out. And then when you boot it, you just do kind of whine to start up. I mean, I think that's a far better idea than kind of like relocating it and allowing you to close the lid. But what do I know?
Now I am going to now jump onto this next one. This is one that has been added at the last minute by Kai, so I figured we'd do it now. So just bear with me a moment. Let's just go to, as people can see, that I've got 2 little notifications on TinkerDifferent. I'm a little bit bad with checking my notifications. Very sorry about that. Okay, so this is the Apple RealTime Clock has finally been reverse engineered. So I assume we're talking about the old one from the old, I think they were in the Plus SE, SE30. I think they were all...
there were also a few other machines, but in different packages. So 2 CI had it, the Classic had it. Essentially, anything which uses either the 8-pin DIP package RTC, such as like the SE30, which always, when it battery bombs, the RTC just gets wiped out. And although Bruce and I both found a solution for a brief time, I think between us, we bought all of them.
That's right.
That were
I have a
available,
massive supply of them in there, and they're mine. You can't have them. So which is a handy thing, because a lot of people have asked me, they're like, oh, it's a real-time clock. There are so many real-time clocks out there. We'll just grab another real-time clock and put it in there. And it's like, what you need to understand is that the Apple RTC chip didn't just do the time. It also stored the parameter RAM stuff. So it's the one that's got the batteries giving it a little bit of power when the computer's switched off. And then it's keeping your, mouse settings and your time and stuff like that. So it's not just an off-the-shelf RTC chip. And so that has always been a problem. And although I'm fine, I've got heaps of them. I'm set. For other people, not so much. So tell us about this one.
So this is like as is shown here. This goes all credit to a guy called Phil Greenland for this, for working this out. An absolute genius. Honestly, the article that is posted there, the new timepiece for a classic Mac, is well worth a read. Like if you're into this sort of stuff, especially if you're going to be building a reloaded board, whether it's an SE 30 reloaded, whatever. Now these, you see there, these little 8-pin dip RTCs. Maxell goes pop. Maxell dribbles all over RTC, melts legs of RTC, renders RTC dead. And of course, as we just said, you can't replace them. Now, a few years ago, there was talk of the Tiny 85 being a perfect sort of size microcontroller, because the ground and VCC pins matched up with the RTC. So it's like, oh well, can we make like one of these Tiny 85s, run the programming that would emulate the RTC inside? There was some back and forth on it, but although somebody posted, I think it was preliminary kind of like concept code, it never really kind of got beyond that stage. So Phil's basically taken that and he's run with it. And essentially, if like by the end of like the first part of his article, you can make an Tiny 85 behave exactly like the RTC chip. It does the job of it. And I believe it can also work by holding, the PRAM values. Everything just works. However, in the second revision of it, which he did, he managed to make it even better and make sure that it worked even more reliably. It's just it absolutely fantastic fix there, and obviously details it all in the code. This is all entirely on GitHub as well. All of the code for this, the gerbers, hardware, everything. So if you want to make your own, you can go and do that as well. So.
And one of the cool things is I think it stores the values in non-volatile EEPROM. So
you don't even need battery back.
You don't even need the battery. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, because, let's face it, at the end of the day, we'd rather not have batteries in these things. We know what they have the potential to do. And although whenever I get a Mac, I take the battery off and I might replace it with a new one, there's always that fear that I'll forget about it and put it away, and then it'll be stuck with the battery and it'll just explode in another 10, 15 years' time, something like that. But it's a really cool idea, because I honestly don't care what time my computer says, but I do like it to store the mouse scrolling speed. Because for whatever reason, when it with the Mac, when it defaults back into like mouse tablet mode on those old Macs, and so having it remember that's a cool thing, and then you don't even need to put a battery in there. So that is very clever. Welcome, Drake. Thank you for joining us,
Vice President.
Yes. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm just going to do this for a quick moment, and Drake, I'll just sort of hand the floor to you for a moment. Just tell us who you are, tell us about yourself, tell us about any of your side hustles, what your role on the board is, that sort of thing.
Yeah, hear ye, listen to Drake. My name's Drake. Not really, but yeah, my name's Drake. I am the vice president or vice CEO, co-CEO of TinkerDifferent for this term. I do a lot of different stuff. We have a little dev group called Satanic Mac Club. We make some recent things like the SC30 ROM sim. It also has the Crucible app for flashing it at home if you have the STM programmer for that. Here's a look at a populated one just in red. So that's fun. We also make.
I was going to say that looks like a static bag to me, but I'm no expert.
Static bag, yeah. So ROM sim. Yeah, we also do the 30-pin RAM sims for SE30, Quadra 950, other machines that use the 30-pin stuff. Blue SCSI hard drive, sound emulators, Beelzebub LED activity lights. We do lots of just pointless, silly stuff. So
And
I'm always hovering
outdoor
around,
recreations.
giving people little parts and things like that to play around. And yeah, I'm here. Sorry to be tired.
That's right. Quick shout out. I should also mention you work closely with K Cobra on a lot of this stuff as well as part of the Keros Mac Mods and Satanic Mac Club.
Yeah, so SMC is myself, K Koba, and then Steven Arsenault in California. K Koba being in Japan. As some people would say, my friend K Koba of Japan. Yeah, and I am in Canada, by the way.
I recently got sent one of those little SE30 thingies, Sims, and I went and bought myself a programmer. I have not yet used it, but I was incredibly impressed with the application that you released for programming it, that you can literally just, drag and drop files and sort of program the sim with it. Because for a lot of people, the programming ROMs is usually, terminal type, writing, typing things into the terminal and that sort of stuff, and it's usually a bit hairy. And so to make something like that so simple, I just think is an amazing thing. So I will probably be doing a video on that at some stage. And then of course, Kay also sent me a whole stack of the little what are they? The 30-pin sims, the ones that are 4 megabytes that you can take chips off RAM like this and then go in and create them. And that has been absolutely fantastic. So he sent me a grand total of 16 of them, and I have now fully populated all of them. So I now have 16 4 megabyte RAM sims. It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I love it. It's
those little projects aren't for the faint of heart. It's a little bit of practice and you'll get them going pretty easily.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a lot of the credit for the Crucible app for the ROM sim will go to Jean of One Geek Army. He did a lot of the programming, and then with Keikoba, I did some of the art, the spinny guy, the RAM chip.
One Geek Army. I've got to say, actually, Bruce, I did just drop you something.
I see this. I see it. We'll do that next. I'm fine with that. I do actually have a request from a few people with regards to those 30-pin sims. They would like the little LED on the back to work as an activity light. So I'm just putting it out there.
It is an activity light. RAM's just so fast, right?
It's always on.
Just blink faster.
Okay, now we've got another one here that's just been dropped in. So let me just grab this one moment, and I will make this happen in a way that may not take all day.
I like how Bruce has monitors, but they're like 5 feet in either direction.
Yes, well,
it's like you're trying to cross the street.
So I've got the main one here, and then I've got another big one here, and then I've got a slightly smaller one here, and a big mess in between. So, okay. So what are we? This is one that's just been sprung on me. So what are we looking at here, Kai?
So again, it's because Drake brought up One Geek Army. He posted this on TinkerDifferent, and honestly, if you use Blue SCSI, this is just a lovely piece of software to use. If you ever need to just create an image for your Blue SCSI, you can go. You can be as authentic as you want and just select a particular configuration of Macintosh and get like standard sized drives for it, or you can create your own, and you can select the SCSI driver and what kind of volume you want on it, and this all runs on a modern machine.
We're not seeing it, Bruce. How many more days?
Not anything.
No sharing.
We're not.
How many more days until we see the
forum? Oh dear! Oh my goodness! My apologies, people. I thought I was showing it.
Yeah.
So-
There we go.
There we go.
So there's Disc Jockey, which is absolutely fantastic. But also, if that wasn't enough, later on he's also created something which currently is Mac only called Discomatic, which essentially allows you to view the contents of the images that are on the SD card in their original file system.
He's been,
which I think.
Yeah, he's been learning so much about like file systems. So he's using this as kind of a excuse to kind of learn all the things that he didn't learn when he was younger. And he's had ProDOS support, partition support. We've learned a lot about SCSI drivers, HFS, and all that stuff. And it's just been, really interesting watching him kind of learn all this, beta test all these things, give him ideas, and you give him an idea, and then about 5 minutes later, he says, "Oh, yep, that's done. It works now." So,
even as a joke, I think somebody brought up like, "Oh, can it run on like System OS 9 or something?" He's like, "Oh, one sec." Gets it. iMac. Like, yay! Now we got a port for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, because one of the things I remember, I think, from the early days of Blue SCSI was there was a disk image floating around that people were using that had a particular driver on it that some Macs didn't like. I don't remember the exact details of it. Eric, you could probably
Lido
driver.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when I first created them all, Lido has a website that's still up actually, and it says it's GPL'd, but it's just the binaries then that says you can use it freely. So it was included with raw SCSI, so we could create images on the fly in raw SCSI. But and then that kind of went out, and we always thought, things just didn't work with a Mac Plus because every time we tried to boot, everything would go wrong, and we just figured out it was the Lido driver. So we've kind of eradicated Lido drivers from every image we can ever find.
But I mean, this just makes this process so simple now of going in and creating an image, all ready to go. It's absolutely fantastic, and I just my congratulations, because this is just such an awesome thing. If you are into vintage Macs, amazing stuff. And I see even Apple II stuff here as well, by the looks of it.
Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because Ron and I were
really
working on
handy.
that a lot. Yeah, you go, Ron.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that like the ProDOS support and stuff was just amazing to be able to add all that, because it saves a lot of time and trouble. Because to really do it, if you have a Apple IIe option card, I mean, you almost need to also have like a real Apple II with a SCSI card in the past, to kind of prep that drive image and everything to be, usable with Blue SCSI. And now it's just trivial to set that all up. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't know if it's made it to the mainstream versions, but there is a revision of the software that supports ridiculously outrageous numbers. So you can have a 32,768 megabyte image file, have the app create that for you. It takes a minute. But if you want to just kind of max something out, and create a bunch of images and save on SCSI IDs, super handy.
Also, I'd like to share a pro tip on Disk Jockey.
Mhm.
So if you have a disk image that was created for an emulator and you want to use it on, say, your Blue SCSI,
It works.
pull it into Discomatic and it will add the missing partitions.
Yes.
Because the one thing about the emulators kind of hide some things from the OS, and they fake out some of the hidden partitions you'll never see. But one of those is like the SCSI driver is actually in a separate partition. And if that SCSI driver partition isn't there like a real Mac expects, your image is not going to boot. But Discomatic can fix it, and it'll fix it really quickly.
It's sort of like in the old days with the option card. If you had your Blue SCSI with your image, and you set it up on the Mac, and then we're like, okay, I'm going to have these additional ProDOS images, and we're to put that in an Apple II and format it and all that. The Apple II had no idea what was going on with the Mac stuff, so it would blow away the Mac driver and other things like that, and basically screw it up where it would never boot. So if you were trying to consolidate like a ProDOS and a HFS partition, but now, oh my gosh, it just does it. It's such a time saver.
Excellent. Okay, what's this next one we're looking at here? SE's big, beautiful unit. Is that it?
Bob Bailey unit. I keep telling people it. Yes, Bob Bailey unit. So yeah, this is a project of Zane's. Essentially, because we've reverse engineered so much of the Macintosh SE. So the glue chip, that's been reverse engineered. The ADB chip has been completely reverse engineered by Tashtari, and now you can make a new one with an off-the-shelf PIC 16F87. The RTC chip being remade. The sound chip, we found out the other day, it doesn't actually generate the sound. It's literally just a low-pass filter and an amplifier portion in it. So that can easily be replicated. Everything else is available off the shelf to build on almost completely new Macintosh SE, except for the BBU, which is essentially the chipset that is consolidated from the Mac Plus, which takes things like the BMU, the TSG, ASG, a whole bunch of other like discrete logic and PALs, and just sort of smooshes it all together in a single gate array. And Zane has just decided to kind of like take on this project to essentially like redo the entire BBU using all of the stuff that is available in all of the Apple hardware manuals, using timing graphs and stuff. This is way beyond like me. I mean, if I want to sleep, I read a page of this thread and until my brain cannot handle it and just goes, we need to shut down now. Well, no, we can't understand. But having said that,
pictures. We got pictures.
Yes, yeah, there are pretty pictures in the thread as well. I mean, okay, look, if you're into like your serious hardcore hardware hacking, the sort of stuff that uses a logic analyzer, and you're the sort of person that likes to break out a logic analyzer for fun on a weekend, this is the sort of thing for you. Okay,
it's so yeah, definitely not for me. I'll just leave it for other people to sort that out, and then when they're ready, I'll just buy them. So
I've had to use the logic analyzers rather a lot. They're not too bad once you get used to them, but they can be finicky and strange.
I love finicky and strange. Well, that one's just done my head in, so I'm just going to go to the next one. Is that all right?
Yeah, go.
Okay, what do we got here?
Another one of Max's.
Okay, yep. A 32 megahertz LC2 accelerator. So now so the LC2 is a 16. Is that correct? 16 megahertz.
16 megahertz.
Yeah,
and on a 16-bit bus.
Yeah, it's a crippled LC3.
Yeah. So who can tell me what this thing does? I mean, obviously the name is fairly obvious, but how does it does it?
Do I have to chime in on this one again?
Okay. Yes, you do. You are the resident brain here, sir. And more importantly, you're the one that's checking out these things most of the time. So,
okay, so again, this is Max and his, as Bruce would put it, his big, beautiful brain, delicious brain coming up with reverse engineering on one of these. So Interware, the famous Japanese accelerator manufacturer, made these simple accelerators for earlier machines to kind of like bump up the performance, because machines like the LC and the LC2, they didn't come with a floating point unit. So instead what they did was they said, okay, well, let's put a 6030 that runs at least double the speed with a floating point unit that you can stick into your LC PDS slot to give you a bit of a boost, make it just a bit better. And luckily, because they're so simple, it was ridiculously easy to reverse engineer. I mean, as far as I'm aware, there is just that single Atmel ATF. I think that's a 20V8 on there. A surface mount 68030 and a PLCC package floating point unit and a voltage regulator, and that's pretty much it. And I know that makes it sound really simple. Obviously, these projects are not simple. They're never simple, and there is always things that go wrong with these sort of things. But this was, again, just a quick one, which Max just kind of like fired out seemingly in a week.
So a couple of things. So obviously, things like these 68030 CPUs are still fairly readily available. I know I've bought a few in the past, and they weren't terribly expensive. Same with these floating point units. I noticed this one's a 40 megahertz one, but it will still work on a slower bus speed. So I
they're
know
never 40. They never made 40 megahertz versions.
Okay,
It's probably a remarked 25, 20, or 16 megahertz.
That's why it's 40, never 40.
Never 40, exactly. So this is very important to note. Sometimes when you see a 68882, it may very well be a 68882, but the markings on here are too new. I very much doubt that it was made in the 25th week of 2004, seeing as Freescale would have taken over by that point. Motorola didn't exist as an IC manufacturer at that point, and they never made these in 40 megahertz. So ignore the actual marking on this chip. It's probably a 16 or a 25, but they generally work absolutely fine at higher clock frequencies.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And this down on the bottom here, we've got the connector to plug it into the PDS. Are those available, or is that just someone used rows of headers there?
Those are absolutely standard DIN 41612 connectors. You can buy them from Mauser, DigiKey, RS, anywhere you like.
You can buy header rows, as far as I know, and they will still work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Cool. If you're lazy like me. I can just buy header. I can walk up the road and buy header rows. So that's more likely what I'm going to do. But this I love this. I'm definitely going to give this a try. Just a reminder to folks. I'm just going to bring this in quickly again. This is something off my website. This is an LC2 board. This is not how it is supposed to look, because this section here where there's a little socket and a floating point unit, that's not meant to be there. They made this board with the space to stick a socket and an FPU, but they didn't actually put one there. So you'll just find a whole bunch of little holes filled with solder there. But you can theoretically go in and remove the solder, put a socket in, and add an FPU to the board. If you are planning to do that, do be careful. I know someone contacted me once, and their computer never worked again after they tried to do it. So make sure you practice on something else first. So but anyhow, I just thought I would mention that, because obviously if you don't want to do that, having this thing here that adds the FPU to that card is an awesome thing. So I think I'm actually going to look at making one of these, because this is awesome.
As speaking of accelerators, I know everyone's Action Retro, Sean, everyone kind of they get so expensive and they get so sought after. Did anyone actually buy a accelerator back in the day when you had a real LC2 or PowerPC?
I can say I definitely did have an 030 upgrade to a Macintosh Classic at the time. So we made our Classic work at sort of Classic 2-ish speed. So
how about you, Ron? Which one did you get?
Actually, I bought the PowerPC upgrade card for my Quadra 610. Which made the only people worse off were Centrus 610 owners. It was 50 megahertz, 68.
Oh yeah.
601. Sorry, 601 chip.
The good old 601.
Yeah.
There's a fun little fact about those PowerPC upgrade cards. It was Daystar that actually came up with them, and Apple literally just licensed it from them and then crippled it, which is like, surely you'd make the same project, the same product, but I don't know, maybe their licensing agreement said that they had to or something. But basically, those cards, I actually had two. I've sold one of them to, again, TinkerDifferent before, remember. They have a selectable jumper, which selects the clock multiplier on it. So they're either typically, 3 times or 4 times on the Daystar cards, but on the Apple cards, they're limited to 2 times the bus speed. So what you can do is, because it essentially bypasses the 040 on those machines anyway, you can just bump up the clock frequency of the bus on the motherboard side of things to get a faster PowerPC upgrade card.
Yeah. The only one
that was, I bought a clock chip, or a clip-on chip, or clock chip replacement for my Quadra 610, and that it bumped it up quite a bit. But even in those days, there wasn't enough code in the operating system to really take advantage of that. So for a very long time, it was a decelerator. depending on what you're doing.
I remember that era. I remember the time in the very early days of the PowerPC when they came in that so little software actually took advantage of the chip that you were getting nothing from it. And when you did get some software that took advantage of it, it was like, oh, wow, this is good. But yeah, they were largely a decelerator a lot of the time because none of the software was actually utilizing the speed of the new 601 chip.
And if you're running 68K code, which required an FPU, that was emulated. It wouldn't ever use the 601's native FPU at all. It would just be like, well, there's no FPU in the system. I can't run this code.
Now, I'll just mention this very quickly. So, Bol, who we know is the creator of the SE30 reloaded board and the grayscale sort of adapter for the SE30, he created also an 040 accelerator for the SE30. I think is that correct? Is that can people confirm or deny?
I can confirm. If you excuse me for just 1 second, I actually have one here on my shelf behind me because who doesn't keep them there? Let's drag this out. So this wonderful little piece of equipment. Excuse me for everyone who had to just view me in my tracksuit trousers. This is the first board that he's made, which is an adapter board, which basically takes the SE30 PDS slot and adapts it to a 2CI accelerator slot there, and has a pass-through there. So you plug that into your SE30, you can plug in a 2CI compatible accelerator card there, and then have pass-through for another card.
But doesn't that also have networking built in?
That one does actually also have,
Yeah.
It has Ethernet, which you plug into it, so you actually have both AUI and regular RJ45 Ethernet on it. And if that wasn't enough, you now get what's available is the Bolmac, not Micromac, the Bolmac Carrera 040, which also on this one has the L2 cache card on it as well. And this one is running at, this is a 40 megahertz 040. It's probably remarked 25 megahertz but it's going to run at 40 whether it likes it or not. So again, you can kind of you can stack these cards like together. Hang on, I will do exactly that. So you have that sort of setup inside your SE30. So you've got Ethernet and an 040 and room for a Micron Exceed grayscale card on top of that to really pimp out your SE30.
Well, I have to say,
you are not having this.
Oops! I accidentally removed you. Sorry about that, Kai. I pressed the wrong button. I think the recreation of these accelerators and everything is something that are really going to be taking off in coming years, assuming, of course, the parts are still available, because there is such a demand for them. When these, like if you see something like a Radius Rocket 040 turn up on eBay, they end up going for ridiculous amounts of money, and so I think it's a fantastic thing that all these people are adding these sort of fantastic recreations of whatever they might be, whether they're 030, 040, whatever. It's really wonderful to see. So now, what do I do?
Real trend with Apple and some of these creations that people are coming up with. Seems like we're having to pick up the slack.
Yep, indeed. So, okay, is that it? Yeah, okay, found it. All right, there. Okay, going to move on to the next one. But anyhow, this is a really cool one, and I definitely want to give this one a try myself. I'd love to pimp out my LC2. So
there's a through-hole version as well for people who don't want to do surface mount. It's a much easier kit.
I love surface mount. Okay, so where are we up to? We are up to... Okay, now this is an interesting one because I know nothing about this. I know nothing about most of it, but this one... No, not that one. This one in particular, I know nothing about. Where is it? There it is. And this one. And begin. Reverse engineer the Spectre GCR.
Yes, and indeed, there was actually somebody asking about the Spectre GCR reverse engineering. a little bit earlier on in the chat. So this one's for you. So the Spectre GCR. This was just a mind-bogglingly amazing piece of kit that was available around the times of the Atari ST. Thomas Armstrong. There we go. So this one's for you. So this thread is literally about the Spectre GCR, which was a cartridge that you could plug into the back of your Atari ST, and it would turn it into a Mac.
What?
The reason why this worked is because in 1985 the Atari ST came out and was commonly dubbed the Jackintosh. Because it might have been a year late to the party, but it had 4 times the amount of memory, and it still had a 68,000 and a few other bits and pieces. Essentially, what this does is it gives Macintosh ROMs, the ability to kind of take over the rest of the Atari ST, and a lot of other sort of functionality is kind of interfaced, like it translates a lot of stuff from the Macintosh ROM into something that the Atari ST side of things can understand. So you just have a working Mac, and you have an Atari ST in front of you, but you turn it on and suddenly you have a Macintosh.
So how? Sorry, did someone else want to say something? Sorry, I just
What are those ports? What are those ports on it?
So if you want to scroll down to that image there, those are, I believe, external floppy ports. The reason why is because the way in which the Macintosh floppy drives work is very different than the way the Atari ST ones work. The Atari ST ones work via, I believe it's a Western Digital 1770. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, so essentially those are so that you can plug in an external Macintosh floppy drive with the appropriate adapter cable, and it will just work with that instead.
That's
kind of implements its own floppy interface.
So I have to ask, if this came out as a retail product, an off-the-shelf product, how did they get around the whole situation with the ROMs? I can't imagine Apple would have said, "Yeah, go ahead."
So this was the problem. You had to supply your own Macintosh ROMs by buying a Macintosh. So you could remove the ROMs and put them in this,
Okay.
and then you render your Macintosh entirely useless, or at least. I mean, I guess you could have quite easily, copied the ROMs off a real one, but basically they supplied them without ROM, so that if you just happened to have some around, then you could pop them in and it would work. It was kind of playing a bit fast and loose.
Only 128K Mac, so in terms of like the OS you could run on it.
So you could, you may be able to work with something like, say, maybe 512K ROMs, but I don't think anything further than that. Again, Thomas Armstrong in the chat probably knows probably a bit more.
Something that was kind of neat in that era was like Outbound and other people that made Macintosh clone machines, the unauthorized clones. They would actually give you a like remote sockets that you would install inside your Mac and run a flex cable at the back and just have a module. And so when you were done with your Outbound, you would open up the back and you would pull off a little PCB that had your actual Mac ROMs mounted on it. And then you would plug it into that adapter so then you could use your desktop machine.
Goodness
you can only
me.
imagine how many bent pins
That's quite extraordinary. I mean, look, this looks like, if you are obviously a collector of those, then this seems like an absolutely awesome thing to have. What an amazing thing that this one is being recreated. Quite extraordinary. Okay.
Amiga folks were also doing similar stuff too, weren't they, at the time?
Yep.
Yes, they were.
Yep, they were indeed.
Yep.
As Thomas said, there was an Amiga version for it as well, because again, 7.83 megahertz, machine, but also the Amiga had something that, again, a lot of Apple folks don't like to, stick their fingers in their ears about us, but the Amiga was faster than the original Macintosh because it had so many custom chips on it. It could be a lot faster than an original Mac as well. So, even with the original ROMs and running the original software, it was still faster, even though it was running at the same speed.
Yeah. I've got an Amiga 500 up there, and I have to admit that although I'm not an Amiga person, I fired that up once and played a few games on it. And I tell you what, if you're a game person back in the day, I would definitely recommend the Amiga over the Mac. That's for sure. I know, arcade game recreations and all sorts of things. It's quite extraordinary. Amazing.
It's really easy to get those things hooked up nowadays too. To just a GoTech and loading the ADF files.
Yeah,
You boot it up, and you can just have a selector screen open, and then there's just all of your floppy images.
I was going to say WHD load kind of opened up the world on that too, for just making it a games box.
Yes, getting a GoTech was the first thing I did with this Amiga 500. Now it's just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. But I did put a GoTech in it. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next one now. And this one is another one of these computer recreations. So it's reverse engineering the LC2 logic board. And obviously, we've already mentioned the recreation of the classic board, the SE, the SE30 has also been reverse engineered. And obviously looking here at, there are a few, I think there are some others as well. But
the 2CX is another one of Max's as well.
Wow.
I think you can get an accelerator for that one.
Yep.
Now, I'll just give you a moment, Kai, just to tell us what's involved, certainly when you were doing these, what is involved in reverse engineering an existing computer? Okay,
so the process is actually, although I'm almost loath to say, it's fairly simple. It really is. Basically, what you got to do with the PCB that you want to reverse engineer, you got to remember 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a destructive process, which is fine if you've got a board that already doesn't work, or if you've got a couple that already don't work because you can harvest them for components, for example. Essentially, you've got to sweep the original board of all of its original components and get down to a bare PCB. Once you've gotten to the bare PCB, you want to essentially scan both sides of the board, front and back, at about 1200 DPI on a scanner. You load those images, or at least the way I was working, I think you can do this with KiCad as well now, is you can load the images that you've scanned into Sprint, for example. That was the layout software that I was using. And then you could essentially just use it like tracing paper. So your Sprint layout is going over the top of an existing image. Which has kind of everything on it that you want, and you just pull parts from a parts library and say, oh, I want a SIM slot, slot there, I want a PLCC84 there, I want a capacitor there, resistor there, and you just go through and you essentially kind of like build up and trace over the original image, and then once you've done the top side and the bottom side, the big thing is for boards like this is the inner layers. Because they're not just simple like 2-layer boards; they are 4-layer boards. Or all Macs have been since the the very beginning. That was actually a common, well, not common misconception, but it was certainly a misconception on my part originally. The inner layers, though, are typically just ground and power planes, which means as long as you know where everything that's on there has VCC and ground, you can trace, okay, so that's a VCC pin on that 60 out of 30, which goes to a VIA, it doesn't go through the board. Where does it go? That goes to an internal layer, which connects to power, which connects to the rail. That's kind of how you do it. And in a nutshell, it usually requires a few board runs of like, that one doesn't work. I wonder, I made a huge mistake there. And then you go and re-roll it, and then you tweak one little thing or two small little things, and then you go and do another board run, and then you solder it all up, and then it doesn't work, and then you find another problem. And But Max got lucky with a lot of these boards because they are, a lot simpler, and a lot of these worked pretty much straight out the box. Wow. His sprint skills are considerably better than mine at this point.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, obviously, with something like this, you'd be having to copy the ROMs. If you were going to make a new one, I mean, obviously, the intention with a lot of these is that you can bring all the parts across from one that's been battery damaged. But because the battery on on the LC2 is not in that bad a position as far as the Macs go. It's close to
Just
a
behind the
connector.
SCSI connector. Yeah, just behind the SCSI connector. But what can happen is, depending on how it's stored, if it's stored with machine facing, upwards, for example, that battery pops and it leaks all over the ROMs, goes over the i30, the FPU, blank socket, but then it goes all over the audio components, like the RTC, the ADB controller, everything.
Kai, so is your advice to store, if you're going to put them into storage, remove the batteries, of course, but the rest of the time, just store them upside down?
Store them upside down. Actually, that's not a bad. That's not a bad way of putting it.
This was actually a recommendation I gave to someone some years ago, because I was talking to someone about battery damage, and the person said, "Oh, I've got this Macintosh 2CI at my parents' house, and they're not going to know how to pull the battery out." And I said, "Well, look, at the very least, tell them to take it out of wherever it is and flip it upside down." And store it that way, because okay, you're going to end up killing your floppy drive, but you might save the board. So
I don't know, Steve. Have you priced EM shielding recently? Come on. Oh, those poor LC owners.
So Thomas Armstrong is saying, he wants a Quadra 700 board next. I have plans.
Oh, look out!
No, It's not a 700. It's not a 700. This is a Quadra 650. But for anyone who didn't know, 650 board goes slots right into a Quadra 700 case. Everything lines up. Same power supply, speaker connections. Literally everything will slot straight in.
But
and
does
the
that
advantage
mean the same with like a 2VX and a 2VI, because they're all the same size, aren't they?
They all slide right in. I mean, the advantage of, say, the Quadra 650 is because it's also got the AAUI Ethernet on the back of it. It lines up perfectly with all of the holes that's on the back. So you got that same port layout. That's the same as the Quadra 700. If you use a Dremel. Exactly. Yeah, the Quadra 700 only has 2 slots, but are you really going to be using 3 new bus slots? I don't know. Plus, the advantage is the Quadra 650 has over the Quadra 700, and I know that's everyone's favorite machine, is 72-pin SIM sockets. So whereas this Quadra 700 tops out at 68 megs. Phil Cranmer has been able to get one of these running with 264 megs of RAM.
Wow!
On one of these, and the VRAM SIMs in here as well. They'll do thousands of colors at a slightly wider range of video resolutions as well. It's just basically it was a much newer board, a lot less crowded than the Quadra 700, which has tantalums literally everywhere.
And actually, it is something worth mentioning about the 650 for people out there who are collecting. It is one of those few boards from that era that Apple produced without surface mount electrolytic capacitors. So there is a good chance that if you get hold of one, assuming the battery hasn't exploded on it, that you'll have something that just works. You just plug it in and it works. I acquired one recently.
The power supply has not leaked down onto the board.
Yes, well, certainly the one I acquired recently, the power supply still works. It just as I say, it just works. So that's a nice thing. I always imagine the worst when it comes to getting hold of these old things, but so that's fantastic. So you are actually in the process of reloading that one.
It's in the pipeline. I've got to do the Classic 2 first. That's the one that I've got to work on. Basically, Max said, "Hey, which of these systems are you doing?" And I'll take the rest. So I picked a few out of the list, and it's taken me a while to kind of get properly set up in here. So I have. I will turn my camera around so you can kind of see my lab space over there, and sort of getting everything set up over there with drawers, all my tools and everything. Because
sorry,
it took
try
me,
it again.
Okay, there we go. So move that over there, so you can see. I've got all of my tools and my test bench and everything all set up now. It's basically because I moved house, last year, and it took so long to get everything kind of set up due to the fact that where I was working from. Well, I was up at 5:45 in the morning and coming back at about 8:45 at night. And after that, you're like, do I want to do anything in the office? no, I don't want to do anything. I want to go to bed. So now, yes, and that is an EMAC. That is that. In fact, that is the very last EMAC. That's a 1.42 with the Radeon 9600 in it, and yeah, that's surprisingly usable. So.
Kai's not going to move it until he has to move house again.
I got a bad knee, and I was lifting it from the bottom shelf, and I was like, I'm going to still end up with a bad knee if I carry on lifting this thing around. So that's staying there for a week.
I managed to get hold of an EMAC for free a little while ago, and normally when someone offers me an EMAC, I go, no, thank you. But this one had the swivel stand on the bottom, and I love the swivel stand on the EMAC. You know, it's
Holy grail.
If you've ever had the opportunity to take the shell off of an EMAC, it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, to be honest. It looks like a jet engine.
Okay. I will have
it's
to
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, so LC2 Reloaded, absolutely fantastic, and I it must have just been such a rewarding thing at that moment to fire it up and see the flashing question mark. I mean, I can certainly say that when I was working on the classic Reloaded board with Kai, that time that we actually got it to chime and get stuff on screen, it's like, oh wow!
It was the Marty the Doc Brown moment. It works.
Yeah, it works. Okay, now this is the other one, and we did mention this before, but we will bring this onto here, and this is the 2CX logic board. Now, I have a question about this. Why the 2CX and not the 2CI? I wonder, given the 2CI was the faster one.
The reason for this is because the 2CX is one of the very last 4-layer boards. The 2CI was a 6-layer board because it had the RAM-based video on it, which added up. I mean, you can see the complexity of the 2CX on here.
Yeah.
And all of and this is just the traces on the top side. So when they introduced RAM-based video, they had to add extra layers. There was no other way around it. Sprint layout still only supports 4 layers, even though they've said, yeah, we're going to have more layers in later revisions. They haven't got around to it yet, and there haven't been any new revisions of it yet. So this is essentially the reason why the 2CX was done. Plus, if you're going to be sticking an accelerator in it anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm the only one who, when they see these boards with no components on them, just want to grab them and frame them and put them up on the wall.
I have plenty of those if you want them.
Oh, no, I've got plenty too. So I've certainly got plenty of the SE that I can frame.
You still haven't done the SE I sent you.
I know. I know. I've got some components. I actually got an SE the other day. That in a hall of computers that I got, and I'm very tempted to actually just move everything from that working SE board onto one of the Reloaded boards just for fun. Because I've got loads of time. Yes. So here's the 2CX with some components on it on a blue board, and there's that gorgeous flashing question mark again.
Yeah. I gotta love the fact that he forgot the cutout in that board, unfortunately.
So that it doesn't slot in, yeah. So
well, it did afterwards, as you can see.
Yes.
Go at it with a Dremel.
That's why the Dremel was invented, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, because when they slot into the case, there's a little piece of plastic that sticks up through that hole. And so if you don't have that hole there, it's not going to sit flush in the board. So there it is. That's wonderful. I love the use of axial capacitors in the place of radials here. That's beautiful. Little radial capacitors doing the splits.
Have you seen how expensive axial caps are, though?
Yeah, I know.
There's the 33 microfarad ones that I put on the SE Reloaded board, and I think there's about 12, 13 of them, and they're like $2 each.
Yeah,
it's like for one capacitor.
Capacitors are just getting insanely expensive. So, so that's another fantastic one. The Reloaded. Now, of course, the whole thing with these boards, the Reloaded boards, they become an individual's passion project. I don't see anyone setting up a business where they will be making and selling, working boards. I think that these are designed for people who have had that kind of battery explosion, and then they want to get it up and running, and so they can bring all of the components across from the bad one to the new one. Because someone talked to, after doing the classic Reloaded project, sort of with Kai, I did have people contact me and say, "Oh, will you be selling these as working boards?" And I'm like, "Not on your life, never, ever will that be happening." Because the amount of hours that you put into it are fine when you're doing it for yourself, but you can't turn that into, I think, a profitable business.
No.
So,
You'd have to sell them like $300 to $400 a board if you factor in your time alone, let alone components on top of it. And
Bruce,
saying,
what if they paid you in US dollars instead of Australian dollars?
I'll build
Would
half
the
of it.
exchange rate make it worth it?
I'll install one cap. There we go. I've installed a component. Carry on.
So, could the 2CX board, does it fit in the 2CI case?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So that could be a route if you've got a 2CI that got battery bombed and it's not repairable. At least you could fit one of these.
But if
in.
you're gonna do that, oh my gosh, I would just get that 650 board.
I mean,
and route out for the AUI.
I'm pretty sure that there are some components from the 2CI. If you had a battery bomb 2CI and you wanted to move it to a 2CX, they'll work. But saying that, I'm not sure about the new bus controllers and whether or not they're the same, because the 2CI introduced I mean, there's extra chips on the 2CI which aren't present on the 2CX. So, without further looking into it,
I believe you are correct. You would not have all. The 2CX, I believe, used discrete logic chips or something like that. And the 2CI integrated them into like an actual ASIC.
Yeah, so two of them were made by Texas Instruments, and the other one was made by Philips.
I think my suggestion for anyone who had a 2CX bombed board or something like that is try and find a cheap 2VX, because that would fit in there, I'd imagine.
It would, but it would also be slower.
Yeah, but it would work,
It would work, but I don't know. That's like, I don't know. Just like, I just kind of feel like, as I'm putting that 2VX board into the machine, just hear the case screaming like, no.
Because this is the thing, I've got a Quadra 700 here that got battery destroyed, but the case is still in reasonably good condition. And I want to get that Jurassic Park set up, with the Quadra 700s happening. And until I get something to put into that Quadra 700, I'm not going to be able to do the Jurassic Park recreations. So, which is everyone's dream.
You've already got the thinking
board.
machine. You got the connection machines and everything.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
that's all.
You've
done
done all the hard work.
Yeah. You see all the little red lights in the background. That's already done. That's right. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. If anyone here just thinks we've done enough and we should stop, just let me know. But in the meantime, I'm just working my way through the list. We've still got people watching, so thank you for watching. I hope this is entertaining enough. Okay, so this is SMC VRAM 512 468040 clock overclocking is ready. So very quickly, a lot of these early Macs, they used VRAM SIMs. It was the 256K ones were the very common ones. They were the ones that had 2 chips on them. And then the 512K were less common, and they were the one that had 4 chips on them. But there have been, I think, a few recreation projects of the 512K VRAM SIMs. But I believe there was someone bought all the chips or something like that. I'm not sure. There was, I think when
from our original design, the one that we were using, the stock just completely disappeared. Yeah. But that was kind of a blessing in disguise too, because we ended up researching some other compatible chips and found this one, which was actually a faster chip. So when
James
used an application with accelerating, it helped to do the redraw of the picture and hold it when you were pushing machines like the LC475 up to like 50 megahertz you were able to go even further than you usually were.
So this VRAM not only gives us that 512, but it also sort of, I guess, kind of future-proofs it for any overclocking that you're going to be doing on this computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does
The
work in
bus speed on the machine
256
won't
if
have
you
a bearing.
remove one of the chips.
Okay. So yeah, I see a video there from
there's
JDW, James Wages. Yeah, good old James. Hello, James. If in case you're watching this later on, hello, James. James, one of the other founding members of the TinkerDifferent forum. Yeah, so that's a very
I will
very
say
cool.
His video series on the overclocking of the 575 board that he's got in that Color Classic is very thorough, it's very in depth, and obviously there are a few other things that you can do to make your overclock more stable, which he puts in those videos, which is like adding, or rather replacing the standard caps with polymer Oscon ones for ultimate stability, stuff like that.
Yes, one thing James is very thorough. There's no doubt about that. There will be no stone unturned if you're watching a JDW video. That is for sure. So now these are available for sale, ready assembled. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can get them from Kay's web shop, Kira's Mac Mods. Yep, but if you're so inclined to, you can just PM me on TinkerDifferent, and I'll usually fulfill a few for you.
Okay, excellent. And is this something where you can just, I don't know, buy a bunch of the chips and buy a bunch of the PCBs and assemble them yourself, or do these need to be assembled by you?
You could just buy them as a kit. We don't really suggest that, though, from like Kay's web shop, just because the end user, the onus is on them to make it work. But for chip testing itself, like, we do want to have some control over, what product gets sent out, whether it's going to be working.
Quality control, yeah.
Because there are a lot of troubleshooting steps involved with this sort of project.
And so this is like the LC series, the Color Classic. These are all using these VRAM sims. I think even some of the later ones, I think were using these VRAM sims as well. So
yeah, the Quadra 650, you guys had noted too. I have one of those in a 700 case, and it has those VRAMs in it.
Yeah, excellent. Good stuff. I think you can expect a message from me coming up soon about those, because I would like them. Okay, so, and let's have a look at the next one. So this is 7200, 7300, 7500, 7600 power button.
I actually need one of these.
Yeah, so I've even had some involvement in this one. So this is, again, for those who aren't aware, with those particular computers, they're made of they're incredibly brittle plastic, and they break. Those power buttons just break, and then you end up with no power buttons sticking out the front. And we've got, let me just have a look here. We've got the old Thingiverse. If you've got a 3D printer, let's just get rid of that. That you have this little 3D model here that comes in two parts. You've got this part, which is the springy bit, and then you can do one of two things. If you have one of these, which is broken, you can actually cut your original button off. So that's the part that is seen. That's the part that's seen from the outside, and you can then stick that onto the 3D printed back. So you're never going to know that it's a recreation, because it's the actual original button. If you've lost the whole thing, you can 3D print it. I have actually done this myself for one of the computers that I have, and in particular now with a lot of these filaments out there that are quite close in color to these old Macs, you can end up creating a little button there that no one is going to know is not original. So yeah, so that's another really good one. Again, it's 3D printers are another fantastic thing available. When we know all of these brittle plastics on a lot of these early Macs, and we have front bezels and front plates and everything that are all broken. And I think, whose video was it? I was watching Sean Action Retro's video the other day, where he had a little faceplate for his 9600 for a blue SCSI with a little hole in the front for putting the SD card. And I just thought and it looked so close to the original. Certainly looks a hell of a lot better than an empty space.
I printed one out on my Bamboo, and like looking from this far away, it's probably about 10 feet away. I can't tell that it's a different color.
That's fantastic.
Mm.
That's really really good stuff happening there in the 3D world as well. What do we got here? Oh, and on that note, here we go. Platinum PLA for Apple IIs. So
that's Joe from Joe's Computer Museum.
Yes. Now I heard him tell this story the other day on one of his live streams, so I'll try and sort of tell the story as best as I can. So he went and bought a little color sensory thingy madoodle thing, and it's a thingamaboob, as Joe would say, and he went and took a whole series of readings from plastic, these old Platinum Macs. He took them from areas that hadn't been exposed to oxygen, so they were the parts where they were less likely to be yellowed. He took a whole series of readings and then averaged it out and came up with this sort of, I think, RGB breakdown. He then found a color from one of the color libraries that closely matched this color breakdown and sent off to Polymaker, and said I think that's it. I've got some here, actually, some of this filament, and he said this is the color, and they went and made a whole bunch of them, and it's a color that you can now, I think, buy on Amazon. And again, I'll put color fab, I'll put links in the description for this PLA, but you can go and buy this PLA from Amazon now off the shelf. Bloody expensive if you're in Australia because of the shipping, but I did get some. I don't particularly like the filament. I find it a bit kind of brittle and powdery, and I don't really like using it, but there is no doubt about the fact that it is a very close color match. And so if you're trying to produce something that looks like an old Platinum Mac, you can get it in sort of a pretty close color to the original. And certainly to the point that, again, if you're talking about a machine where you have got something that's broken or it's got a hole in it or something like that, it's going to look a hell of a lot better than that. So
the spindler filament, as Jay calls it.
Yes, indeed. I'm sure everyone is aware, but during that time in Apple's history where they were trying to save money, they started producing the plastic with a slightly different makeup, and it hasn't gone particularly well, even to the point that you can get, say, I think it happened sometime between like the LC3 and the LC475. I think, is the LC3 the brittle plastics or the good plastics? I can't remember. But you take, say, an LC2 and you get, say, an LC475. You put them next to each other. They're largely the same shape. The plastic might look the same color. You sort of think there's no difference there. But with that LC475, you open it up. That board is held in by little plastic tabs that you have to bend out in order to slide the board out. And you are pretty much guaranteed to snap those tabs off when you go to take the board out. I would be amazed if those tabs stayed in one piece. And the same with the Color Classic and the LC575. The little the cover on the back, the I/O cover on the back. With the Color Classic, when you bend those little tabs to lift them out, they generally just come out with any problems. The LC575, pull those tabs and snap, off they come. So there are a lot of people out there trying to reproduce things on their 3D printers, and having a good color is good. Does anyone have anything to add to this one before I move on? No.
Speaking of those LC machines and snapping the tabs off the back of them, that's another thing that the Kiro shop has in it, are replacement tabs for those machines. You can just go and cut the broken ones off and replace them with 3D printed ones.
Wow, awesome.
But the advice I keep seeing these days is just get in there with a Dremel and just Dremel off that little tab,
the hook.
So it just sits on there, and then just don't pick it up and try to run. I mean, you'll have to pick the whole machine up. But
yes,
it can never snap if there's nothing to snap against.
That's exactly right. That's what I have done with one of my I think there might be the 660 AV, which is the large pizza box, and again, that's brittle plastic. I've just filed off the little part that hooks on, so the top it goes on and it rests on, and if you've got a monitor sitting on it, it's all fine. If you go to lift it off, you're not having to bend anything back, and you've got a much better chance of it surviving. PowerBook 1XX series battery case. So these, as with all batteries, they have a limited lifespan, and for people who are wanting to keep these things portable, there are the little projects like this, and I see. Look, this looks like a 3D printed case. I think
it is.
Please proceed. Whoever wants to talk about this one.
The guy that has posted the thread here originally posted it on the Discord, not knowing that there was actually a forum side of things, which apparently is actually more common than I thought. So yeah, again, this was one of those things of like somebody going, I want a battery. They don't make them. I'll make a battery. That's pretty much exactly what this is. Is a pretty good recreation of the PowerBook 100 series cases, but also how to lay out your batteries internally and get everything kind of connected up. And of course, modern battery technology is advanced, pretty far in the last couple of decades since these machines originally came out, because they just use regular NiMH cells. So you can get way better battery life from making your own cell pack than you would ever get from any pack. Even if it was a new old stock one that with 100% charge, you would never get anywhere near the runtime out of one of those packs that you will with one of these ones to make yourself.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, that is definitely something that has improved and is continuing to improve. Is battery technology, that's for sure. So, the opportunity to go in and kind of, I guess, sort of repack these or build a new replacement battery pack using modern battery technology is a wonderful thing. So, this I think we can hopefully see more and more of this sort of thing happening with as more and more of these computers. I mean, I've got a titanium G4 sort of PowerBook, and that battery still holds a teeny bit of a charge, but eventually it won't. The
only reason I'm just scared of batteries, so I don't know if I'd ever, just because I don't know much about them. You always hear horror stories of someone soldering or doing something, tack welding or whatever it is, and just don't want to drop a battery and have an explosion. And I'm not going to
welded a lithium battery, and now I have no house.
Exactly.
Right.
Doesn't that take all the fun out of it, though? I mean, I love to solder onto the ends of batteries because it gives you the rush, It's like, will it or won't it? Will it or won't it?
I think that what a lot of people are doing these days, if they're worried about rebuilding a battery or something like that, just bring your AC adapter with you everywhere and buy a UPS and then just turn it on, wherever you're at. And then that beep 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 that lets you know it's working.
Just be like Big Clive, have an explosion containment pie dish, and everything's fine.
And here's a little known fact for everyone out there. Australia is the largest exporter of lithium. So for all of you, we're keeping your batteries going. You're welcome.
Does that mean if we pierce Australia, you'll ignite?
Yeah, probably.
That's not a knife. Shit.
Now, 68040 heatsink clip. Now, this is an interesting thing because, I mean, some of the 68040s that you buy have a heatsink on them, and some of them don't have a heatsink on them. And I'm not sure necessarily what the rhyme or reason of that is. I mean, I've seen ones that seem to be. Yeah?
I can tell you why. Yeah, it's because the original run of 68040s from Motorola were non-qualified parts, and they were made on a bigger process node. So when they were running at 25 megahertz, they were hot. Like, ouch level hot, which is why some of them have heat sinks. Later on through the production life, as the parts were then qualified, they were also made on a smaller process, so they dumped less heat which meant there was no requirement for a heatsink. Yeah, they'd run hot, but they didn't need a heatsink, to the point where eventually they went through, I think it was like they started off like 0.65 micron, then went down to 0.57, like over time, and there were different kind of like mask revisions, which is why whenever you're looking at a 68040 chip, you end up with a little code in the corner. Most in a Mac are I believe there is E42K is the marking on those. And those are the ones that will run at 25 megahertz without a heatsink. But if you put a heatsink on them, they're generally a bit happier, like 33 megahertz or so. Early ones will have something, I think it's like a D23 revision. Those are the ones that are made on a larger process and require a heatsink and ideally a fan as well.
And so is this designed to work with the standard heatsink so that if you've lost the clip, or is this a clip that's designed to work with an off-the-shelf heatsink you might
Off the shelf. So,
okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
Alex, there we go. He's in chat right now.
Yep.
The maker of this, but yeah, so like he says there, it's for a standard 45 by 45 by 10 heatsink that you can just buy from anywhere on like eBay for like £3.
And I assume this is something we would be wanting to print in like ABS or something. I imagine PLA, we might be looking at meltage.
Refer to chat. see what Alex says.
Yes. I'd be interested to know. I mean, I don't know how much heat it's going to be exposed to in that sort of situation, because obviously something like PLA is going to start to PETG at least. There you go. So yeah, so we the old PLA, once you start getting up to around about the sort of, I don't know, probably 50, 60 degrees Celsius mark. My apologies for people who don't work in Celsius. You will start to get bending. So, but having said that, with these other more heat-resistant PLAs, they do spit out fumes. So you then have to make sure your 3D printer is in an enclosure. So, okay, that is another awesome thing. Something so incredibly simple, but such a useful thing. So, loving that. We are getting close to the end of the list here. So I am just we'll probably move through these because I suspect people are probably getting a little bit tired, particularly for poor Kai, where it's got to be, like 1 a.m. or something like that?
Coming up to, but it's fine. I've had coffee today. I'm fine.
Fine. So, floppy gears. This is something this is just part of life when it comes to dealing with the old vintage Macs. If you're into them, the 800K and the 1.4 megabyte floppy drives have a little eject motor in them that was made by, I think it was Omron, someone like that. And they had built into them a fail-safe mechanism so that if something was to jam, rather than melting the motor, there was a soft gear put in there. It was a gear that was deliberately made a little bit softer than all the other gears so that if there was a jam, it would break. And then what you would then be able to do is clear the jam and then in theory go in and put a new cog in there. But the problem is that the plastic this softer one was made from, as it's got older, has become the consistency of cheese. A nice cheese, like a hard cheese, like a Parmesan or maybe a pecorino or something like that. Yeah. And as a result, these cogs need to be replaced. And there are a few people doing, and then of course there's the STL file available for this gear, so people can print them themselves. But I will say you are probably going to struggle trying to print this on a what do they call them? I can't remember the name of there's a
FDM.
That's the one, FDM 3D printer. You will almost definitely need to go with a resin printer because you're just not going to get the resolution. So yeah, you can print these on a resin printer and then take out that old broken cog and drop in a replacement, and your computer will eject again. So that is. It's just, again, one of these fantastic things because this is something we're all facing. I mean, if you have got a floppy drive from that era that still works with its original, eject mechanism, its original gear, you consider yourself incredibly lucky because virtually everyone I come across past a certain age, that gear is either broken or it will break the second you use it. That
gear will probably still break, but if it works,
Yeah. I have come across one where for whatever reason that gear didn't break, and it did actually melt out the little motor, and so the little motor was just had a little melted mess on top. And so you can see why they did do this with the soft cog. It was a very deliberate thing. Yeah. So anyhow, that's another one. Again, the Mac people will know all about that. Won't have to explain it.
I put a link in chat too for the applicable resin that we've used for these.
Excellent, good stuff. And you are selling these? Are you?
I was just giving them away, and anytime I do a print bed of these, I just do the same thing. But the design by Stephen Arsenault that's being shared around, we provide them to Mac Effects as well, and I think a few other places Kay will ship them off to. So if you want to purchase them, you can get them from Mac Effects or Akiro's Mac Mods website. But next time I do another bed, you're more than welcome to ping me on TinkerDifferent and get a couple for yourself.
Yep, I think I've actually got stacks of them, but I paid for them. All right, so that's the old floppy gears. Let me just move on to this one. SATA in an old world PCI Power Mac.
Yeah.
Who's going to take this one?
I'll do it because I've been doing quite a bit with this lately. But Zodium. DOS Dude 1 and Zodium, and it's been known for a while you could flash these SATA cards with the SL3112 chipset, I think it is, with a macOS like 8 to 9, maybe even 7, I forget, compatible ROM. There's really cheap ones on AliExpress for $6, and they actually dropped a little bit, so it's like $5.88 now. You can buy them. The ROMs actually change every once in a while from revisions, probably just whatever's cheaper, right when they run these batches of these SATA cards. But if you have a programmer, a few of them, if they don't require 12 volts for programming, you can just program them right from a utility that DOS Dude 1 actually made, I think a Mac OS 9 utility that will do it, or Mac OS X or a modern PC. But if not, you can desolder it quick, put it into a programmer and program it. And it's really, you get crazy speeds. So if you have any Mac that has PCI in it, so like a 9600, G3 beige, even G4, G5, or G3, G4 desktops, you can get like 40, 50 megs a second read and write with a SATA drive. So they're just for $6 plus shipping and a little work, you can get insane speeds on those old Macs.
Oh, that seems like an incredibly practical little thing there.
Yep. So if you don't have that programmer, this was a project that kind of pushed me over the edge to buy one of those programmers. They're a little expensive, $60. I've always thought I should probably have one just for other projects. But now if you can flash these just from a PC or a Mac, it makes it a lot better.
Mm-hmm. I will say
you can
as
also
well
use those programmers with the
works on these
ROM
too.
sim.
And then DOS Dude 1 did a lot of other stuff too, because some of these ROM chips were smaller, so they wouldn't, or they needed more, or you need a 512 ROM chip for the Mac ROM because it was bigger. He actually implemented a compression algorithm and compressed the ROM so it fit on the 128K chip. So
wow,
he's gone way above, and he's really active in here. There's a lot of people talking about all the stuff going on with this. So it's just really exciting to have a $6 solution to your drive needs.
Colin is also making modern IDE SSDs for like your PowerBooks and things like that. And with an adapter, use it in your desktop machine or whatever. And I think on his website, he just has like 128s and 256s, but you can contact him for custom sizes as well. Because he made some 64s for me and they work great.
Well, because it's worth mentioning that on those, sort of those computers, one of your options is to buy one of those little enclosures, cheap made in China enclosures where you can then put in you can put like an SSD in it. And I heard Colin saying that these use a particular driver or something like that is notoriously bad, and they all use it. And a lot of those little drive enclosures will work in some of the Macs, but some of them they don't, and they sort of work. So I've had one that sort of works, as in you can copy an OS 9 system folder on it, you can boot it up, and it'll work. But if you decide you want to maybe install OS 10 on it, the installer will fail halfway through, and you know that the common point of failure I found it's that SSD or it's that drive. So having something like this, which has been specifically designed for this purpose, is a wonderful thing. I mean, it's really good. Obviously, it might be a little bit more expensive to go down that path, but if you're going to be pulling apart one of your old laptops to replace the hard drive, which on some of those old Macs is a real pain in the backside, you want to make sure that what you're going to put in there is just going to work.
Think about the number of drives and adapters Sean of Action Retro tries in some of those computers to get it to work. Having one drive that just works.
One drive to
worth a couple extra dollars.
Okay, I'll pop this one. I think we're getting very close to the end here, so we'll be finishing this up very, very soon. So this one here, Kai, what's this all about?
Right. Okay. So basically, this is a list of literally everyone that I can think of, and other people have contributed to, where you can buy stuff that is either new old stock or out of production. In the US, I mean, for example, at the top of this is Unicorn Electronics, and they really do have some weird stuff, available for sale. Stuff that hasn't been made for a very long time, but they have large stocks of it. If I've mentioned Silicon Arc beforehand as well, that do the cheap Bournes filters, for example. But yeah, again, there's a lot of like ex-military grade semiconductors, the whole tubes full of everything from sort of MOSFETs through to semiconductors. And yeah, people have been contributing to this thread for a little, for a while now. Obviously, you've got UT source being mentioned there as a good source for Apple specific stuff. But again, even if it's just kind of like, I'm looking for for a specific 80mm fan that's this thick that will fit in, say, a Macintosh LC or something like that. Don't worry, there's a supplier in there as well. Or if you're after 72-pin SIM, something like that. That's where if you find a place, just pop it in that thread. That's what it's for.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and obviously this is where sort of something like an online forum works so well. If someone sort of posts something into a Discord chat, and the next thing you know, it's gone up into the past history. Having a thread like this, where if you find something of interest, you can just add it onto there and refer to it. So yeah, just a reminder: if there are people that have only ever used our Discord, not the forum, this forum is turning into just the most amazing information resource. So again, if you find sort of some hard to get components somewhere, just add it onto this thread. That's awesome.
I've just noticed Joe in chat has just said, how about hinges for a Pismo? Now, actually, there is a place in that list, applemacparts.co.uk. They actually have in stock right now PowerBook G3, Pismo, brace, flex, and clutch. Left-hand side, £27. Again, in stock with they also have hard drive carriers, AC adapters in stock. 14.1-inch display cables for the LG displays. So I will actually link that straight to you in chat.
What was the name of the place again?
So they're known as Visual Information Services, but it's applemacparts.co.uk, and they are fantastic for old inventory. And also, if you're looking for a part, the name of the part, but you might not know the Apple part number for it, you can use it as a cross-reference because they post the Apple part number for every single part they sell. So you can use that on, say, eBay or something like that to find it. Even if they don't have it in stock, you can go, wonder what the part number is for it. You can go there, get the part number, and then paste it into eBay and find it that way.
That's awesome.
Okay, I'm going to move on to this next one now. So I'm just trying to, get these ones moving because we do have a little Q&A to do at the end here. This one, I love this one.
Oh, it's amazing.
So if you're not aware of an ADC, but at a certain time in Apple's history, they decided that they would make a connector that they would use for a couple of computers and a couple of monitors and then never use again.
These ones. I'm wiggling my fingers beneath one.
Just like audio-vision.
Yeah, yep, that's right.
It's like, where's my HDI 45 cable? It's around here somewhere.
I've actually got. I don't think I have any ADC monitors, but I certainly do have a couple of computers with cards with an ADC connector on them, and so that was Apple's. Was it Apple Digital Connector? Is that what it stands for? That's the logical thing. Yep.
Apple Display Connector.
Display connector. Okay.
Apple destroys connectors.
and so
Apple demands cash.
This is. They certainly do. So this is a little device that allows you to connect the ADC and then run ADC to HDMI, which is absolutely fantastic. So look at that little thing. That's just the awesomest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for people out there with this situation, that's an absolutely fantastic thing, and once again, that's someone coming up with a solution to a problem that exists with this stupid. There's the stupid connector.
As an example, Apple actually made their own adapter after ADC stopped being a thing for people who had ADC monitors but upgraded to a newer Mac which didn't have ADC. It was the A1006 adapter. And the prices for these vary wildly, anywhere from between like $50 to like $179. It's just the prices are all over the place for these things. They're never consistent. So this as a replacement that's open source is fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And people that buy those have to keep in mind that it's a power supply in there too. There's caps, there's everything else, and I don't think that there's a really good way to get that apart other than the 5-foot drop to actually get inside of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I know I sort of go on about this, but this is the absolutely awesome thing about TinkerDifferent and the sharing attitude that people have. That it isn't just about I'm going to make something and I'm going to sell it and make a fortune from it. It's like I have come up with something cool and I want to share it with people. And all of these sort of open source things that are being created at the moment it's just so wonderful. It's that it really is the right attitude to have with this sort of stuff. Okay, now this is the last one, so let's see what this one is. It's a bit of a lucky dip because I just find out when I click on them. Okay. RP2040 based ISA card is drop-in replacement for. I don't even know what any of this is. I know what an RP2040 is, and I know what an ISA card is, but I don't know what a GUS is.
Yeah,
that would be
Gravis
ultrasound.
Okay, what's that?
A very expensive audio card from back in the day, which is all near impossible to get.
Yeah, I stupidly passed on the ability. The opportunity rather to get one for about £10 not even a year ago. And I just thought I vaguely remember them. I mean, I was again, it's been a while since I've done that sort of stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, they were kind of cool, but I don't really need one, and that was a stupid mistake.
And I think the Gravis Ultrasound is the sound card that there was a picture that made the social media rounds where the seller had cut off the ISA card edge connector for gold salvage and was trying to sell this sound card, which they probably saw, wow, look at what this goes for eBay. And they were trying to sell this ISA slot card edgeless
slotless
ultra.
That's the sort of it's
just
the sort of picture that makes us as enthusiasts just want to go and hit a bottle of bourbon.
The Gravis Ultrasound, there were many classic games that supported it. It had, I mean, it was a sound card that people wanted back in the day because of the sound quality. And of course, now people want it now because they want to go play those games that supported the Gravis Ultrasound.
Exactly.
But those go for like hundreds of dollars.
The sound fonts on it are very unique compared to what you think about a Sound Blaster audio. And those cards generally did not have the issues that the Sound Blaster cards had with like hanging note bugs or just weird noise and things like that a lot of those three Creative Labs cards had. So people just, plus it was like a red PCB. It was really neat. But One Bit Fever Dreams has been working on this for quite a while, kind of building that project up. And it's really neat. I mean, it's a fraction of the cost of trying to source and get one of those cards. And he posted some videos where it was basically like side by side comparisons between like real Sound Blaster cards and the Gus, and then like the Pico Gus, and it was like nearly indistinguishable.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of, sorry, go ahead.
The parts from Mauser are only something about 25 Canadian to populate this thing. So it's quite a cheap project to do. And it's not only the Gravis ultrasound, you're able to emulate the Sound Blaster 16, the AdLib card. There's just a few other sound fonts you're going to be able to play with. So anybody who's really into the MIDI stacks, this is going to be your project.
It's also a really good example of a non-Apple project, because we're not just all about Macs. Well, obviously, we all love our vintage Macs, but there are plenty of other sections in there. Obviously, IBM PCs is one of them as well. So we cover everything, not just Apple. This is a perfect example of one of those projects.
Tangentially related to PC sound card technology, SBMU just exploded recently. If you guys read anything about that, where for if you just want to build like a DOS box, you can just do it on a modern machine. You don't have to have some of those hard to find cards. Now you can run like a TSR, and it will redirect all the stuff to like your modern sound card on your whatever motherboard. It's nuts.
Right. I sort of feel like we need to give an honorable mention to the RP2040, because I'm seeing this pop up in so many different projects now, that we have this incredibly inexpensive but incredibly powerful little chip that you can either just buy as a chip, or you can buy it on, what is it, little Pico board. And
Raspberry Pi Pico.
And it is just opening up so many different opportunities of things that can be done, because it is just such an insanely powerful little chip that you can get it to sort of emulate all sorts of different things. And obviously seeing it in the latest iteration of the Blue SCSI, and also in that other one, the Zulu SCSI, and actually seeing it in various other projects, and obviously seeing it in this one as well. So it's great to see. And I mean, I think they're like a couple of dollars or something to buy one of those.
$4. Five if you get the Wi-Fi version.
Wow.
£3.60 here in the UK with for the non-Wi-Fi version, just the standard carryable with the RP2040 on it.
So probably $120 here in Australia.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
And
just trade your lithium for one.
And
we'll trade you for your lithium.
Yeah, that's right.
And the RP2040 chip itself is like, I think in quantity is like, well, it's $1 or less depending on quantity. So that's why the chip itself is also being used in many projects. But yeah, the Pico, awesome board, cheap price.
Yeah.
Available.
And they're available.
Yes, that's a big thing, isn't it? Yes.
We're seeing so many of these Pico different projects because, well, it's the only thing we can get.
Good. And the only thing we can get.
Yes, I was at Micro Center yesterday, and I decided not to ask the clerks if they had Raspberry Pis because they were going to just tell me no.
I just remember in the old days, like pre-pandemic, you could just go in there and they were just like, there was like a throne made
grab
out
the
of
whole, grab the whole shelf.
just,
They wouldn't care. They'd
right,
have more tomorrow.
Yeah, it was a bit like that for sure. So I can still get them here, but they just cost a fortune. So that's pretty much it for the show and tell side of things. So we did want to reserve a little bit of time for a Q&A, and I believe we have a few questions here that people have asked during the chat that we will then do our best to answer. So where is the best place to? I think you've collected all of those, haven't you, Jacob? You've got.
Yes, I've been writing them down locally. I didn't put them in a Google Doc or anything.
Yep, no worries. So did you just want to ask them, and then we'll?
Sure. I mean,
yeah.
One Bit Fever Dreams asked, could an RP2040 be used for some sort of DOS VGA to HDMI adapter? And this is one that I can answer because I've looked up this sort of thing. The RP2040 is more than capable of doing VGA with certain resolution limitations, but it can't do HDMI easily. It has to be dramatically overclocked to get up into the pixel clock rates that are necessary for DVI, which is, compatible with HDMI. So VGA, yes. HDMI, you're really pushing it.
Okay. All right. Would there be a chip that would be more suited to a task like that?
Probably a VGA to HDMI converter, because this isn't something you want to use a microcontroller for. You need dedicated hardware usually to do this kind of conversion.
Okay. Excellent. Good stuff.
Second question. Is there progress on a supercapacitor replacement for the Mac portable battery? And this is something that I and Alex can answer because, yes. It needs a few farads of capacity and a way to pre-charge the battery because the Mac portable, if the voltage on your battery is less than about 5 to 5.5 volts, it will trickle charge it. And even though supercapacitors have so much less ability to hold charge than a battery, it takes 5 ever to charge the darn thing before you can use it. So it needs some sort of boost plug on it, which you charge it from the adapter for a couple of minutes, and then your system will turn on or something like that. So yeah, it is absolutely doable, but it is painful without some tweaking.
Okay. Right.
I think it's only like, what was it, Alex? Like 3 farads or so, and it was completely stable under all usage scenarios, even with the floppy and hard drive running. It really was surprisingly low. We thought it'd have to be higher than that. Next question from Pretzel FTW. Will the Classic Reloaded ever be available again?
The Classic Reloaded is available through Mac Effects. So they are currently under license. A couple of other people have also got the jobs for it. It's also available freely on GitHub if you want to go and make your own with the BOM for the bottom side and all the pick and place files. So if you want to go and get one made for yourself, JLC PCB is the board house of preference for me at any rate. So if Mac Effects has run out of them, you can drop them an email and they'll probably get back in stock. If you're local to the US. If you're elsewhere, though, again, best to do a group buy. Oh, if they're sold out on Mac Effects, okay, then drop Mac Effects a message and say, hey, you're interested in a Classic Reload, and he will probably restock them.
And it is worth mentioning just how incredibly, if you haven't done it yourself, how incredibly easy it is to get a PCB made up. I mean, it was something that I found daunting for ages, and then one day I sort of jumped online and I had some, I call them Gerbers. Sorry if it's meant to be Gerbers, but
no, I love that because now I'm just going to call those little furry things Gerbils from now on.
Yeah.
I know
viewers here.
Their political affiliation aside, they're just so cute.
And then you just you upload it. You
questions.
You choose what color you want the PCB. You choose what thickness you want your PCB, and then you kind of you order it, and that's it. It's such a simple process to get your own PCBs done. And so people I would suggest if someone out there is a little bit, and they're not expensive. That's the crazy thing. This is the thing when it comes to prototyping these days. You can get boards, like small boards, for like $1 each. It's such an inexpensive way of doing a bit of trial and error. Yeah, I think this one's close, but let's get one. Get one printed, get one made up, and there might be a couple of faults. Make a couple of fixes here and there. Get the next one done. So, it's. I would definitely encourage people to sort of, if they're thinking about it, to have a go at getting their own PCBs done.
I want to brag. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to very quickly brag on 2 of the people that are in the chat with us tonight. It's Eric and Drake, because I had something that I wanted to do, and I was unsure how to get things started. And Eric showed me how to use KiCad to kind of get something out of my brain onto like a design that could be prototyped. And then Drake also showed me how to use Easy EDA, which is the free tools that JLC PCB makes available to you. And both of them are really great tools, but it allowed me to like just do something that I was like completely scared of, like of trying to take on. So both of you guys, thank you so much, and I am your fault.
KiCad is like Photoshop, and Easy EDA is like KidPix on the Mac.
Yeah.
I will say, when it comes to ordering PCBs, by the way, just to give you an example, this was during the pandemic that I ordered these 5 PCBs with all the pick and place done on the rear hand side of the Macintosh Classic, excluding like anything else. The PCBs on their own, for 5 of them, it worked out about £9 each. With things like shipping charges, customs and duties, and with all the pick and place and everything else, it worked out still to about £20 per board. So, I mean, if you don't need 5 of them, just find 5 other people that might want them, or just sell them off. We do have a trading post section. If you order extra PCBs and want to sell them off, we will have people buy them from you.
All right. Next question. Jeremy's Vintage Hillbilly Shack says, Apple IIsD, does Disk Jockey work with that?
Apple
You can make an image, and then you can take the image and you can put it onto your Mac SD, and it's just whatever.
Okay. Next question. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be pronounced Bacchus or Baku, because Baku sounds interesting. Anyway, asks...
Weren't they the people from Star Trek Insurrection?
Good question.
The Baku.
Are there any teasers
That guy
on
hated
projects?
Mozart.
Yeah. Are there any teasers on projects in the pipeline, or teasers for planned forum and Discord activities? That's a loaded question, because
that
there
is a
are
loaded
probably
question.
Lots
That
of
is a loaded
projects in the
question.
pipeline from everyone.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, isn't it? All these people, virtually all the people here, and the people, sort of on those forums, have usually got little, little projects in the pipeline. I'm not sure that we have any scoop, unless anyone here has a scoop.
Well, I mean, I have upcoming projects, but that's because I'm insane.
I mean, as far as the forum, the forum stuff goes, there will be announcements shortly of stuff. I'm not going to go into it any more than that, but just stay tuned. There's stuff coming.
Thank you, Mr. President.
They asked for teasers. That sounds like a teaser to me.
It does. It does.
See, in order to get the nice thing, you have to hang around and participate.
Okay. And
You have to like and subscribe.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
visit our
that's
sponsor, PCB.
it's an interesting one you've got there, Francois, the PowerBook 500 power plug. That's pretty cool, because those power supplies are really hard to come by.
Yeah, absolutely. That does look like again, if anybody's seen in the TinkerDifferent Discord, he's been posting just small pictures here and there of like, oh, I've done a thing. What is it? And like, oh my god, have you made a thing? Yes, I have. Any more details? No. Teasing us all.
That's been pretty fun. I've enjoyed that. And the last question, Retro One says, live stream per quarter?
Well, we'll look. This is really what it comes down to with the live stream, is that it's an experiment. We don't really know. I mean, what the purpose of this live stream was obviously to let everyone know who we are, and obviously to generate some interest in the forum and all that sort of stuff. But look, we've had a pretty good audience here today. Very active, lots of chat. I think it's been good. So I'll hand it over to the Prez, but I think we could probably see more of these in the future.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do anything like this. I mean, to be fair, and let me be honest with everybody here. The idea for this live stream came up originally last year with a previous board. But for one reason or another, obviously people's personal time, whatever, it didn't manage to come together before the board changed. This time round, we made a decision about a week ago. Hey, let's do a live stream. And it's all come together in that week, thanks to the efforts of Bruce and everybody else here. It has just gone really, really, really ridiculously fast. And so I think, we've been streaming now for nearly 2.5 hours. We've still got people here talking to us, active, interested. I'm not saying that every live stream we put out from, in the future will be of this length, but it gives us a good indication that people are interested in the stuff that we have to say and talk about. And if we can pull this together in a week, then I'm sure we can schedule something for maybe a couple of months down the line.
Yep. I mean, it really just comes down to us picking a time of the day when we can all make it from the time zone perspective, and a particular day when as many of us are available as possible, locking it in, doing a little bit of promotion to let everyone know it's about to happen. But obviously, this is the important thing. We want everyone to please like the video, subscribe to the channel so that you get notifications about ones coming up in the future. Obviously we will make these sorts of announcements on TinkerDifferent, but please like and subscribe the channel. This is fun. It's good fun.
But if you like this format of us walking through and exhibiting projects from TinkerDifferent that we thought were worthy of sharing, leave comments on the video, and more importantly, keep posting your great projects to TinkerDifferent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because when you post projects and work on them there, then that gives us things that we can use for things like this.
Yep, indeed.
One thing I would also like to again reiterate is the fact that this is a forum for more than just nerd, tech, retro stuff. We have other sections as well. We've got, if you want to post up a recipe or something you've done with your car, or you've gutted your microwave and made it talk, if you've turned your washing machine into a spaceship, anything like that, we've got sections for it as well. My missus is going to be posting very shortly in the gardening section, for example, about the vegetable patch that we've got going on. Again, we're if you think about it, we're tinkering, but in the garden with soil. It's
yep, no, for sure. Have we got any more questions?
I don't have any more written down, so it's up to the live chat now.
No worries. Well, I did see a couple there. There was people were asking. Okay, so rather than asking specifically, who here in this little group here has a YouTube channel and posts any YouTube content? So, okay, so these are the ones who have the YouTube content. So, because someone asked whether Drake, Eric, and Kai have YouTube channels, so the answer to that is no. But yeah, some of us do have YouTube channels and do stuff. But so I guess really when it comes down to if you're looking for sort of updates on those sorts of projects, then the best place to go is onto the forum. So
about the only thing I have on YouTube is the SE Reloaded kind of bring up of the original board and a walkthrough of Alien Isolation from back in 2014, where I was crapping my pants for 20 hours solid. So, I mean, if you really want to check that out, you can. But
okay, well, I think that's probably it. Unless anyone has any other questions they wanted to chuck into the chat real quick. What we'll probably do to finish off is just do a quick little run around of everyone here. If they've got anything in the pipeline, anything coming up, any sort of future projects or things coming on are worthy of mention. So we'll go in an anti-clockwise direction. Is that you like that, Ron? Yeah.
Your terminology is appreciated.
Yeah. So, Drake, anything of interest in the pipeline?
In between classes, I'm in school currently. I've been working on some custom arcade stuff, which I will be getting ready to post. But I've been taking old gun cons and converting them to IR. And there's a project called Gun 4 IR, and it's extremely accurate. So you can play a bunch of your old MAME games on the modern PC, or even like your 85-inch TV out in the living room. You and your partner can grab a couple of these, like $10 gun cons from Japan, eBay, and get them converted. And you can chuck a 24-volt solenoid in here with a rumble motor, and before you know it, it's just like the real thing. Boom, boom, boom. It's really fun. And again, it's involving 3D printed parts, lots of different stuff. So I'm excited for this one just because it's so, hands-on and the visceral experience of being at the arcade again, which I haven't been to in just forever, because where is an arcade now?
Yeah. I just sort of on that gaming side of things. I recently bought myself an Apple Silicon, Mac Mini, so the M2 Pro, and yesterday I had so much fun. There's a little project that came out that allows you to run Duke Nukem 3D natively on Apple Silicon, around about 270 frames per second, something like that. But and full screen, 25, 60, 40. I've got a 25, 60, 1440 display here, running Duke Nukem 3D in full screen. I was just having a ball. It was just so much fun. So that's absolutely fantastic fun. I am going to move across to Eric next.
Yes. So I have a little something going on. It was supposed to be from Macintosh, but I don't know, time will probably run out. But it involves all the data on Macintosh Garden, resource forks, and goodness. So I don't want to give away too much, but I've been chatting with Christian things, and there's some pretty interesting, cool things we're going to do with kind of some data mining on vintage Macintosh software.
Any chance of improving the search engine on Macintosh Garden?
I don't know. Maybe that's out of my scope. But
I've been nagging Christian about that for ages, so I don't think he cares what I have to say about it. Okay, Kai.
So earlier this month, I was working on my ultimate bridge machine, which is my Power Macintosh 9600. I got in there before Sean made it cool. Again, it's not quite as pimped as Sean, but Sean always gets the really cool stuff. I still have a G4 in it. So I got a G4 in it. It's loaded up with 512 megs of RAM. I've got a 18 gig, 15,000 RPM ultra-wide SCSI drive with one of Max's 50-pin SCSI adapters in it. I've got a Radeon PCI card in there as well. Sonnet Tempo. Is it the Tempo? I think it's the Tempo. It's a combined Firewire USB card and a much better Ethernet card in it. And just, I love that machine. It absolutely flies. So that's
why you were asking about these, isn't it?
Yes, it was indeed. Yeah, because I still have this bucket of crap behind me. That's 7500 that needs playing with. But for the rest of this month, and I actually have it on the desk here, this is something I'm working on called Project Middlesex. Yes, it's a PC part. I am rebuilding the PC that I took with me to university 20 years ago. I can't believe this is this old, but this was the original board with the original CPU. It still works. I've managed to source some period correct memory and an AGP card from way back when as well. They are really, really expensive now. So yeah, I'm going to be building that one up at some point. Again, I just kind of fancied like something a little bit different for a change, but with a bit more sort of like nostalgia attached to it.
Kai, are you going to go with an entirely acrylic case with the cold cathode tubes, just like you did back in the day?
No, see, back in the day, I had a really cool butterfly case, which opened exactly like the G3, like the whole side of the case, like levered down. Nice. So I've got to still source the GeneTech Butterfly 03 case. For that. It was otherwise it looked like a Dell Dimension. It was boring as hell. No windows, no cold cathode, no 22-inch spinners on it, or nothing like that. It was just it looked like a Dell Dimension, but the side opened. I like to go for this kind of stealthy look on it.
I love the nostalgia. So much stuff that's motivated by nostalgia. It's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Jacob, any projects in the pipeline?
I do have 2 which are in progress. So recently I guess this makes it 3. Recently I released design information for LC power supplies, LC 1 through 3, plus the Quadra 605, Performa 475, whatever thing that is. So those designs are available on GitHub, so you can rebuild a power supply with modern components if you feel like it. The two upcoming projects, one of them which is in progress now, I'm literally staring at the JLC PCB website waiting for them to start actually assembling the thing, is a 8 megabyte Mac portable RAM card.
Mm.
Okay,
And
excellent. Yes,
the other one that I'm working on with a guy in Germany is recreating the Mac portable power manager chip, because that's the other thing which will kill your portable. If it's not the Swim and it's not the hybrid module, it is the power manager. And I think I know how the power manager dies. That's actually in that thread we talked about earlier with the hybrid recreation. So we are slowly making progress on that.
excellent.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Awesome.
Are there any portable RAM recreations available at the moment, or is this going to be like the first, or is the biggest, or whatever?
That's a good question. I mean, Tech Knight licensed his original design to, I think it was Mac Effects. And those cards have been unavailable for a very long time now.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of any other Mac portable RAM cards that are being manufactured, because it's been really a giant pain to get a hold of SRAM or PSRAM of the appropriate sizes. Because, I mean, sure, you can get new old stock stuff, which is like 256K by 8 bits wide, and that won't help you. But I found new chips. This is a completely new chip design, nothing vintage in it. And theoretically, it's going to work.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. And so that you said, is that 3 or was that 2? You said 3 projects. Is that have we been? Is that all 3?
Yeah, that's all 3 of them. That's the
excellent.
power supply release, the 8 meg Mac portable RAM card, and the power manager slow and steady recreation.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah,
Okay.
Elemento, the Mac portable supercapacitor design. I think Alex was going to try and release that. It only takes a couple farads of capacity, and you don't need a battery anymore, presuming you have the correct original adapter.
Cool. Excellent.
Yes, and you're welcome, Fizbin. Those eMate upgrades are weird.
Oh, the eMate's a funny one. I had 2 of them and sold them like a couple of decades ago, and I feel so stupid for doing them.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible to get even more expansion in there, but you have to reconfigure things that we don't fully understand, and I've been pulled a million ways with Blue SCSI V2. So,
okay, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. We'll give you a break then.
much appreciated. Thank you.
Justin, anything in the pipeline?
Oh, I've got plenty in the pipeline because Macintosh is in full swing on my channel. I will be live streaming, I guess, Thursday starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So thanks to the U.S. going to Daylight Savings Time, my stream might be an hour earlier for you, which may be a good or a bad thing. Anyways, 4th week of Macintosh, it will be the LC 475. Also, yesterday, I visited RetroTech Chris. We went thrifting. I managed to buy things for 3 different platforms while I was up there, and actually have footage for at least 2 videos. And I'm being purposefully vague because I have stuff out for channel supporters for preview, and I need to work on editing a really quick video so I can get that out to them so I can get it out to everyone. But that has to do with something I bought on eBay for local pickup. We picked it up while we were out driving around yesterday, so I'd save on shipping and save on broken plastic. And let's just say there was a surprise inside. So you will definitely want to subscribe to this YouTube channel right here, because it's a surprise, and I think you will be pleasantly surprised. All right.
Okay. All
hey,
right.
and look,
well,
I got the pointing finger right too. I was pointing the right thing.
Okay, so we've got this is Justin, the international man of mystery. So we just have to wait and see what these things are. Ron, how about you?
Actually, with thankfully how cheap it is to print things at JLC PCB, my remote battery project, I've actually got the final revision of the boards back that don't have a very like silly error that I made on the other one. So, but I've got those, and there's basically it's 2 revisions. There's one, it's a PCB, has just a CR 2032 and a switch, and then you can run that wherever you want to go. Because my whole thing is it's great, have a battery in there. I don't want it sitting on top of the board. So I'm not saying that it'll leak, but it's an imperfect world. So
Yeah.
And I also have the version that's just a single battery, and I have the 2 battery version that would be perfect for like a Mac 2 or something like that. So there's a diode in place, so you could even use them on PCs or other projects where it tries to charge that clock battery. That it won't be able to do that. So, but that's really the big thing. I'm thinking about doing another run of my Blackbird boards, which are it's a very simple little adapter, so you can use like an off the shelf, like, oh gosh, what are these? Like a sound bar, like a 16-volt sound bar, a power adapter, and then you can just break it out and plug it into the back of your PowerBook 500 series machines. So, but I don't know, just a couple little things. But I've actually got the PCBs for the battery project, so those are going to start sending out here in the next week or 2.
Excellent. Good stuff. Only me left on the list. I don't do all these interesting projects that all the other people do. The best I can manage is I've got a few sort of 3D models that I've made for a few vintage things, and I will eventually get around to releasing them on TinkerDifferent. My apologies that I haven't done that yet. And of course, it'll just be more of the normal content that I do, fiddling around with ultrasonic cleaners and vintage Macs on my channel. So that's pretty much it from me. So I did see a question pop up here as to whether there is any sort of meetup being arranged for VCF East with the TinkerDifferent crew. I don't know about that, but if people are planning to go and do want to meet up with other TinkerDifferent people, we do have the events and catch-up section on the forum. So, jump on there. Someone wants to start a thread and say, hey, I'm going, I want to catch up with other people, and just see who bites, see if anyone actually wants to, sort of to meet up there. Because, I mean, there are a lot of people I know going, so I'm sure it will be a good, fun event. So,
actually, I this might be a bit of an announcement, but Kai said that he was actually going to be at VCF East this year. He's just got to like bung up the car windows. He's just going to drive. He's just got to bung them up because they're a little leaky right now, but he'll be there eventually.
Yeah.
Even if that were the case, rolling up the windows would not help. I drive a 23-year-old BMW. There are holes where there should not be holes.
Okay, so it's swimming then.
My
yeah?
drive will go. I'm on my way.
So,
Followed by a few more bubbles and then death.
so caulking the Beamer and fording the ocean is not an option here.
No.
I guess you're just going to have to hire a guide and
£9,000 worth of metalwork and a respray, and still no.
That was a Oregon Trail reference.
Caulking the Beamer is my new band name.
Is that a ska band?
Oh dear.
Two-tone, somebody with a pork pie hat and a trumpet.
Well, we have got to 2 hours and 40 minutes, and we are starting to degenerate into silliness. So I think, unless anyone has anything they would like to add, I think we will probably start wrapping things up now.
So, I just have one note. I don't really do the VCF stuff because being on the West Coast, I'm rather far away from that as far as I know. I do go to DEF CON every year. That's my big hardware event. So if any of you are going to be there, I will.
Okay.
Nice.
Excellent.
Cool.
Very cool.
I see Steve has just put into the chat here that he says gets up lazy butt to set up a stream. So that sounds to me like he's threatening to do a live stream at some stage after us. I was thinking about doing the same as well, but the forecast here in Sydney today is 40 degrees Celsius, which is I think 104 in the old money, and I'm not sure that working in the shed is exactly what I want to be doing in that sort of weather. But I may or may not do some sort of tinkering later on. But yeah, it does look like Steve's probably going to stream as well.
Tiny little handheld fans, because I hear they're
I have an air conditioner in the shed, and as long as it's blowing directly on me, it's not too bad. But it's not a particularly well insulated shed, even though we all know it's actually a studio that's made up to look like a shed. So, Okay. So anyhow, look, I think I'll wrap it up. So first of all, obviously, I want to say a great big thank you to everyone who's tuned in and watched and has contributed to the chat. It's been so good to have so many people watching and asking questions and talking about this stuff. And more importantly, it's fantastic that people wanted to stay on and watch it, because it just shows that we're all geeky nerds and we all love looking at this stuff. So, and yes, I think we will definitely look to plan one of these in the future. Thank you very much to you guys for giving up your time here, being on the live stream and contributing. It's certainly been a lot of fun for me. I hope you guys have enjoyed your time as well. Yeah, I think that is probably it. So from the TinkerDifferent board, we'll say thank you to you all. I don't think I have any sort of fade out thing or anything to finish this with, so we're probably just going to end up ending it fairly suddenly. So I apologize for that, but thank you everyone for watching. Thank you guys for being part of it, and we'll hopefully see you at the next one. And don't forget to post those projects on TinkerDifferent. So bye to all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.